Hello and welcome to the show. If you're enjoying it and want an ad-free experience, consider signing up for the Patreon, patreon.com/the101podcast. Get early access and exclusive content on there as well for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Links to ways of supporting the show are in the description. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the One-on-One Podcast with your host, Juan Ayala.
Welcome back to another episode of the One-on-One Podcast. I'm your host as always, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen today. The beautiful Paranoid American and the even more beautiful Slick Dissident. Sorry, Thomas. Because look at Gabe. He looks like a Nordic god, bro, with the hair and all that. And he does archery, dude. You don't do archery, Thomas. You don't do archery.
Oh, actually, I'm going to have to call you out on that.
Yeah.
The one time that me and you went to do archery at the same time, I remember being the better archer.
Oh, that's right. Damn. Okay, I take that back, dude. I take that back. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
what did we do? We went like what do they call river fucking fishing?
Bow fishing. We went bow fishing.
There you
Dude,
go.
I completely forgot that even happened.
I bet you did because you didn't catch anything.
You're absolutely right.
It
So
blends into all those other times you went out and didn't catch anything.
I take that back, Thomas. I am so sorry. Sorry for the disrespect, but here we are, and we're going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart because I grew up watching Star Wars, and I think it was on a premiere that I hit up Gabe, and I was like, hey, dude, why don't we just do a de-occulting of Star Wars and see where we go with it? And of course, we watched the movies, we deciphered a little bit, and I was telling the guys that I wanted to do whenever I present any idea, I present the mainstream first, whatever that is. And so the traditionally believed stuff or whatever's out there, we know this has been done, but not the one-on-one way, not the Slick Dissident way, not the Paranoid American way. And that's what we're here for, to break it down and de-occult it our own style. So I want to start off with, we're going to do it in chronological order. So A New Hope and then The Empire Strikes Back. We'll do a brief synopsis of the story. I'm sure everybody's seen the movies. They came out a very long time ago. And then we'll go crazy with it. We're going to pull up graphics. We're gonna do all that good stuff, talk about it, and maybe dig up some stuff in the process. So yeah. And you can find me on social media at the One-on-One Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/the101 podcast. You can find exclusive content, early access on there, and check out the website, Occultist Monday, the Chosen One comic book, the101podcast.com. There's also the Kickstarter for issue 2. I'll post the link in the description. Make sure to sign up for that because that's the one with Sam Tripoli and a whole bunch of other people in it. We are going to be rolling that out very soon. So check that out. And Thomas, Gabe, if you guys want to plug your stuff for the listeners, I'm sure they know who you are, but we're here for it.
Thomas, paranoidamerican.com. You can check out a bunch of comics, coloring books, all kinds of cool stuff. I've also got a Patreon for adults only with some adult comic books. What else? We got the Chosen One that's coming out. Make sure to follow the Chosen One on Kickstarter. As soon as we get enough followers, we'll launch that, and you can get that in your hands. And keep a lookout for the MK Ultra comic. You can go to mkultracomic.com and read like the first half of that comic for free. So check it out if you like MK Ultra and stuff.
Is that the pamphlet, dude? That pamphlet?
That's the pamphlet. Yeah, that's the one right there.
Yeah, there you go. Get it on Paranoid American's website. Check it out. So, Gabe?
Yeah. Slick Dissident on YouTube. It's my main jam. I'm also with the Weaving Spiders Webs on Saturdays and also Wednesday nights. And then you can also catch me on the Interverse with Chance Garton over on the Rockfin. And don't forget Occultus Mundi. I got a couple spots in the Occultus Mundi archives. I'm super stoked about being a part of that team. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to be changing that one quarterly because we do have other plans. I do want to branch out a little bit and do other content. So I might just release it. The next one for December, I'll release December, and then after that, quarterly. And I don't know, maybe make them a little bit longer or something. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm just trying to find time to focus on other endeavors to grow the social media, grow the podcast. You know, so if you grow the social media, which is free marketing, you essentially try to convert those people over to the podcast side to other things, right? So we're going to be doing that. I'm also going to be doing maybe some boots on the ground documentary work as well with Old World Florida. Homie Romy's supposed to be coming down at the end of this month in December. So we'll see what happens. It's going to get interesting here very soon. And I'm just trying to really branch out and do other things, grow the YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera. rockfin.com/the101 podcast, all that good stuff. So we're here for it. And it's an alchemical process little by little. And I want to thank everyone who listens to the show. The show has been growing over the last year. I mean, it's skyrocketed. So thank you for all those that tune in. And for the people who talk shit to us too, and for the people who leave good reviews, good comments, whatever, I'm here for all of it because, hey, as long as you don't try and push your ideologies or beliefs on anybody, I'll hear you out, dude. I literally do that. That's what a podcast is. Literally having all sorts of different people on to talk about all different sorts of topics, and you hear them out. You know, we're not always going to all agree, right? But we'll agree to disagree. And as long as you're not being a piece of shit, then you're good in my books. So let's get to it. I want to talk about A New Hope. And I haven't watched these movies in years. And I was kind of disappointed with the newer stuff. Because the newer stuff, they want to push the new agey stuff, the agenda of today, and we know what that is, right? With the whole LGBTQs, like, why does that character have to be gay? Does it really add anything to the story? Then there's the conspiracies online. They well, that one character, he's a homosexual. Does it matter? Does it add to the character? Does it take away from it? Then we have Disney that recently took over and bought the franchise, which I think we all saw that coming. And I remember being a kid and watching these movies on VHS and really hoping that somebody would take it over and do a remake of, like, why did George Lucas start in 4, 5, and 6? Why didn't he start with 1, 2, 3? And then how terrible number 1 was? I think it was not number 1, which is number 2, Attack of the Clones. The dialogue was kind of awkward, but actually number 2 is one of my more favorite ones, Attack of the Clones. And we're going to be starting with 4 and 5, and then hopefully trickle into 6, 1, 2, and 3, the original canon. And maybe we might assess how we feel about the canon, the extracurricular. We'll see if we want to get into those. I don't know how you feel about them, Gabe, but I'm not like crazy about them because you can see right through them. You know what I mean? It's the same story over and over again. I think episode 7 was the whole another Death Star, and they're trying to stop it again.
Yeah, they got to bring back the temple for the third rebuild of the temple.
Yeah, so we'll see how this goes, and if people enjoy it, then we'll think about branching out. So I don't know if you want to start, Gabe, or if you want me to start, because there's this book that I knew about for a while, and it wasn't because of this. It was because of a book that he has, and it's actually on Freemasonry, believe it or not, Thomas. And he talks about I think what's it called? Royal Arch Freemasonry. I think that's what it's called.
You trying to get me killed here? Yeah, Royal Arch Masonry, which is one of the separate divisions of York Rite.
So RAM in there.
Oh, that's the what's his name? You bring him up all the time, Thomas.
Aries Ram.
No.
Royal Arch.
Oh, No, I'm talking about what's that guy, dude? Pike. Does Pike talk about that too?
Yeah. Because so in Morals and Dogma, Pike kind of breaks down every different degree from 1 to 33, essentially, or it might be 4 to 33 for a Scottish Rite. And then there's the I gotta always plug this one. I don't get proceeds from this. It's a used book, but if you're struggling to understand Morals and Dogma, if you've ever tried to read it and it was too thick, definitely look at this. Clausen's commentaries on Morals and Dogma. Not only does it break Morals and Dogma down into much easier bite-sized pieces, but it has like some of the best freaking artwork from the 70s. It's like 1970s comic book style.
That's
so
dope.
It's worth it just for, I mean, I honestly got it for the pictures alone, but the actual way that they break it all down is amazing.
Yeah, quick fact. Thomas doesn't even know how to read. He just looks at pictures. That's why he does comic books. So oh damn, that's dope, dude. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, I'll write that down. Yeah, send me a link to that because I'll probably pick.
You can find it on archive.org if you look for it.
Nice. The book I'm talking about is Cinema Symbolism: A Guide to Esoteric Imagery in Popular Movies, second edition, by Robert W. Sullivan the fourth. And we're going to be talking about episode 4 right now, so that's kind of interesting. And he breaks down a ton of different symbolism. It's nothing crazy, but it's enough to dip your toes in it. And he does like a breakdown of the movie, all that good stuff. And he does it because at the end of the day, it's what Campbell talks about, the monomyth, which I think that's why these movies were so popular, because they speak to us on an ancestral level where it's the hero's journey, the hero with 1,000 faces. So when people are watching, and this is why I talk about it so much, symbolism, it's always going to be there. It's going to talk to you subconsciously, whether you like it or not. Like the other day I was watching, I don't know why I even was watching that movie, the Tom Hanks movie. And it's the one with the Maersk, Alabama, where the meme came from. It was like, I'm the captain now, that movie. Well,
right.
That movie is wild, dude. I was sitting at the edge of my seat. My heart was beating. I was getting into it. And at the end of the movie, he's writing the last note to his family. And it just resonated with me. It's like, imagine me in his shoes. Like, I'm about to die. I know I'm about to die. And this is the last thing my family's ever going to see. That was wild. And then last second, boom, they save him. I was like, oh, and I know it's based on a true story, and you know how it ends. But dude, they take you on a roller coaster of a ride, man. And I know Tom Hanks is a piece of shit, but he's a great actor. He's just Castaway. Come on, dude. Castaway is one of the greatest movies ever made. Like, again, another movie where you feel his loneliness. You feel that. And it goes back again to the hero's journey. He's literally in that movie. He's literally woken up by a whale at the end of it when the barge shows up to save him.
Are you saying that out of all of the entertainment that Tom Hanks is able to provide the world, out of all the people, he's not allowed to get a little bit of adrenochrome here and there just to fucking keep his fucking whistle wet, bro? There's so many people out there that are also doing adrenochrome that are not providing the same service that Tom Hanks is to the rest of the world.
Shut up, Thomas. Don't go there, bro.
The other thing that trips me out, I know we pointed this out briefly in one of our deep dives, but the fact that the adrenochrome molecule looks like a soccer ball.
Oh, yes. That ball of consciousness, yeah.
Like, even regardless of the whole, whatever the bloody face ritual is alleged to be, a soccer ball. All that aside, it still has...
It was a volleyball, wasn't it, though?
It was a volleyball, yeah.
It was a volleyball. You're right, not a soccer ball. Good point.
But still, I mean, the ball...
There could be a soccer ball under that volleyball, the esoteric to the exoteric, right?
That's right, yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And that's why we're here, because these movies, they really ooze. I think more back then, they oozed at the seams with esoteric symbolism, and it was more hidden in plain sight. And whenever, in my whole journey of waking up, I can't watch movies nowadays without noticing some ulterior motive behind it. For example, the new Sonic 2, even that's kind of occultic. if you sit there and you watch it, it's like, wait, what? Talking about a relic with ultimate power. Then he's talking about being reborn again. And he's Dr. Eggman. He's born from an egg. Come on. I mean, that screams Mithras right there, right? The egg, the cosmic egg and all that stuff. So
can I ask a really random question? And I think I already know the answer for Gabe, but I'm going to ask you one. Gabe, you can answer, but I already know your answer. Is there a single symbol that like you could have a mass? Let's say it wasn't an egg. Let's say it was the shape of, pick any random shape. Do you think that there's any shape that would exclude them from symbolism, or like no matter what shape they form, if it's a circle or a square or a dodecahedron, like there's always going to be some sort of archetype that gets applied to it, right?
So, like, can I apply that to the cube? And I mean, the archetype.
I mean, I guess the point being that if it's a cube, oh, that was a symbol to Saturn. If it's a pyramid, oh, that's a symbol for the Eye of Providence. If it's a circle, oh, it's a symbol for the monad. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like symbols all the way down, turtles all the way down. So did you draw a line anywhere, or is it just like?
Yeah, I do draw a line somewhere. Sometimes sometimes the entire time I'll be trying to find the occult symbolism or the occult connection, and I can't. But then Gabe will say some shit like, "Oh, Hitler was addicted to blue meth," and I was like, that was what Breaking Bad was about. Like, I'm here the entire time trying to find like the occult connection, and we're on some random episode. He just throws that out there. I'm like, like it just blows my mind.
He just puts down a tarot card, and it's like the fucking tower, bro. Check this out.
Yeah, dude, that's how he is. Sometimes it would just come out of left field with some crazy thing. But like, I watch Breaking Bad, and I'm trying to de-occult it, and I was like, maybe not. And there was like some Santa Muerte stuff in there for a little bit, where like the cartels, they worship this certain entity, and then he was kind of associated with it, but I was like, okay, whatever. But then the Hitler connection, the placenta, and the meth, I mean, just blew my mind. So
I saw a clip of Hitler at a soccer game. I think maybe it was the Olympics
on Rogan.
You see him, he's like going back and forth. And, it occurred to me, what if he's worried about snipers? What if he's staying on the move because he doesn't want to be an easy target?
Yeah.
He's rocking back and forth because he thinks somebody's going to take a shot at him.
Yeah, but I mean, his hand was shaking. I saw it on Rogan. Rogan was talking about his hand was shaking. He's just like, dude, the guy was on some stuff, level. Dude. I mean, they were, bro, that was crazy. And so I think symbolism and cinema, essentially, I've said this before, movies are just a bunch of sigils just in continuation. They paint a picture. They are the picture, and they are now with the destruction of the uncanny valley with CGI. We have the new Avatar movie coming out. I am a big Avatar fan. I did love the first movie. If you look at the symbolism behind that, maybe what they're trying to tell us, I don't know. And we're going to get into it with this movie, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And we're going to, again, from my point of view, what I thought some things were. And I have some interesting notes that I took while watching these movies that maybe are unorthodox. And I want to but Gabe isn't orthodox. We know that. Gabe is Gabe. So he's going to put his spin on it. So I can get a little weird on this episode because, hey, it's fun, right? I want to maybe talk about the opening of A New Hope and talk about an outline really quickly. And I'm trying to do it without having to read this entire thing. I don't know if you want to start or not while I highlight this, Gabe.
Well, can you guys confirm or deny? Did they change A New Hope from just Star Wars?
So I noticed that. I did notice that because I have a website that I go on, and whenever I would look up Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, it wouldn't come up, and it came up under Star Wars. Yeah.
So I think at some point the A New Hope was added on as part of the modern edit. And that's something that is kind of interesting to kind of keep tabs on because as we'll kind of we'll touch on it when it comes up in the story, but they did come back and add 47 seconds of never seen before footage. And the seconds that they added is actually very telling. and it came in just in time to, I think, set up some predictive programming for the lockdowns.
I'm gonna jump around here. I'm actually just gonna, it's not that long, so it's a quick rundown of the movie here from this book, Robert Sullivan. So it starts off with the music booming. I'm gonna paraphrase some of it so I don't read it verbatim. So we know that the famous the whole thing with Star Wars, it starts to come up from the screen. It's telling you all this explanation. So the opening lines explain that the galaxy is in a state of civil war, and that the spies for the Rebel Alliance have stolen plans to the Galactic Empire's dreaded Death Star, a heavily armed and armored space station capable of annihilating an entire planet, almost like an Eye of Sauron type of thing, right? Rebel leader Princess Leia Organa is in possession of its computerized blueprints, but her ship is captured by Imperial forces under the command of the sinister Sith Lord Darth Vader. Before she is captured, Leia hides the plans in the memory of the astromech droid called R2-D2, right? It's like, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. That famous, that resonates. No matter what age you are, it resonates like for forever. And she, along with a holographic recording of herself, the small droid flees to the surface of the desert planet Tatooine with protocol droid C-3PO. C-3PO and R2-D2 provide comic relief throughout the entire saga, personifying other comedic duos. And the droids are quickly captured by indigenous Jawa traders who sell the pair to moisture farmers Owen and Biro Lars and their nephew Luke Skywalker. While Luke is cleaning R2-D2, he triggers the famous holographic recording and the graphic message in which she requests assistance from Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the only Kenobi that Luke knows of is the old hermit named Ben Kenobi, who lives nearby. The next morning, Luke, upon learning that R2-D2 has escaped during the night to seek Obi-Wan, searches for the droid with C-3PO. Skywalker is attacked by Tusken Raiders, right, the Sand People, who are scared off by a shadowy, hooded, scarecrow-like figure in the distance. Coming to, Luke meets the hooded person who is Ben Kenobi. Kenobi then reveals to be Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Luke of his days as a Jedi Knight. The Jedis are a sect of mystical warrior monks who served as the galactic peacekeepers but were destroyed by the Empire. Contrary to his uncle's statements, Luke learns that his father, Anakin Skywalker, fought alongside Obi-Wan as a Jedi Knight before he was betrayed and killed by Vader, who was Obi-Wan's former pupil. Right, you were the chosen one. These fucking movies are amazing. So Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force, becoming a Sith Lord. Ben then gives Luke his father's lightsaber weapon. Obi-Wan views Leia's complete message, during which she begins to take the Death Star plans to her home planet of Alderaan for her father to retrieve and analyze. The Death Star is like a moon-like space station, we know that, to annihilate a planet. Luke initially refuses, but changes his mind after discovering that the Imperial stormtroopers have destroyed his home and killed his aunt and uncle in search for C-3PO and R2-D2. Obi-Wan and Luke hire pirate and smuggler Han Solo, the Wookiee, Chewbacca, to transport them to the ship. On their ship, the Millennium Falcon, Han agrees, but only after negotiating an exorbitant fee, because obviously he owed people money. Upon being questioned if the Falcon is a fast ship, Solo brags that it made it to... So there's always this focus on, it's so fast. And I want to talk to you about that, Gabe, because I'm like, why do they keep focusing on how fast it is? It's always like, it's super fast. Yeah, super fast. Upon the Falcon's arrival at Alderaan, they find the planet has been destroyed. So they pull up and it's just like an asteroid field. Like, oh, shit. So under the orders of the Death Star's commanding officer, Grand Moff Tarkin, to pressure Leia into revealing the secret hidden base of the rebellion, Leia identifies Dantooine as the location of the secret rebel base. Tarkin nevertheless demonstrates the Death Star's firepower, ordering the destruction of Alderaan. Tarkin and Vader soon realize she lied, prompting Tarkin to order her immediate execution. Meanwhile, the Millennium Falcon is caught by the nearby Death Star's tractor beam and brought into a hangar bay. When Obi-Wan goes to disable the tractor beam, Luke discovers that Leia's in prison. With the help of Han and Chewbacca, they rescue her. After several harrowing escapes, they make their way to the Falcon, but Obi-Wan sacrifices himself in a lightsaber duel with Vader, allowing the rebels to flee. The Falcon escapes the Death Star, but the Empire has placed a tracking device on the ship to follow them to the rebels' hidden base on Yavin 4. And The rebels analyze the Death Star plans, disclosing a vulnerable exhaust port leading to the station's main reactor. Luke joins the assault team, but Han collects his reward for the rescue and intends to leave despite Luke asking him to stay. Han is in debt to the gangster Jabba the Hutt and wishes to pay him off. The rebels suffer heavy losses after several failed runs, leaving Luke as the one of the few survivor pilots. Darth Vader, escorted by 2 TIE fighters, are about to destroy Luke's X-Wing, but Han Solo returns at the last moment and destroys the TIE fighters with the blast, sending Vader's spiraling away. Luke then successfully destroys the Death Star. Seconds before it can fire on the Rebel base, Luke, Han, and Chewbacca are given rewards by Princess Leia for their heroism at the very end. So that's a quick rundown, and I wanted to read it because it's kind of, quick, straight to the point, and it kind of tells you the entire gist of the whole movie. And I didn't I for some reason I thought the movies were longer. I remember, when I was a kid, I remember them being a lot longer than what they actually were. They weren't that long. I remember Star Wars being like super long, and I remember falling asleep to them every now and again as a kid watching them. And then when I was watching them again over for this episode, I was like, "Oh, that's not that bad." It's only like an hour, almost 2 hours long, hour and a half, give or take. So, take it away, Gabe. That was the quick rundown, and then we can get into what my observations, and we can go crazy with it.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad you invited me to do the program here, because I have learned a lot just by engaging, this theory. It's kind of proven itself out to be quite systematic and orderly. But I've always known that there are a couple tarot cards intrinsic to Star Wars, and it's the first couple ones are really simple and obvious. But then the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, these are specifically the Crowley Thoth tarot cards. Like the Luke Skywalker is totally the Fool card. He's seen on the cliff's edge, looking off into the sky, like a daydreamer. And he also has a iconic purse or pouch. He's got a supply kit on his waistband, and that's very much like the Fool card in so many ways. But then, as I started watching it for this project, I realized, there is a difference between your standard Fool card. He's usually walking forward off the cliff, but in the Crowley Thoth Fool card, he's falling backwards. You can see the bottoms of his feet. He's literally going back on his ass. And in fact, Luke Skywalker, he falls back on his ass a couple times in the film. When he's up on the mountain, he's looking down, scoping out the sand people. He gets scared and he falls backwards. And then later in the bar, in the cantina, with the Pygmalion looking guy, Luke Skywalker, he gets pushed back on his ass a second time. Which is just kind of an interesting kind of fool me twice metaphor, I think, that he does the same fall 2 times. But here's a great, this is Fool card all the way. Yeah, isn't that so iconic to the whole film right here?
Yeah, staring into the abyss, right? Because this desolate landscape, the movie gives you that, and I've talked about it before, where I don't like playing regular offline games because I feel trapped in like this dark universe for some reason. And this movie paints that picture of this planet for Luke. It's a dead end. There's nothing. It's just desolate landscape. They're there to work. His uncle is trying to keep him away from looking into his past. And you can tell at the beginning where he's like, hey, just one more season. One more season? What do you mean one more season? It's like, yeah, just one more season. It's like, you said that last time. So they're keeping him there. You could tell. And again, you have the 2 sons, and what Luke is. He's the Apollo, right? Leia is the moon. So you have that connection there with that. But yeah, absolutely. It's iconic. Let me pull something else up.
There was 2 pillars in that scene too.
Really? Let's see.
If you look on the bottom left.
You're talking about these here?
Yeah, there's 2 pillars there.
Oh, good catch.
Nice. Yeah. So let's see here. I have some notes on this. Because everybody, I mean, this is exoteric shit. The original Star Wars trilogy was born out of the works of Joseph Campbell, And we know who Joseph Campbell was. He was an American mythologist, writer, and lecturer. And his most famous work is The Hero with a Thousand Faces, published in 1949. And on Campbell and Hero, George Lucas has stated, in the 3 decades since I discovered The Hero with a Thousand Faces, it has continued to fascinate and inspire me. Joseph Campbell peers through centuries and shows us that we are all connected by a basic need to hear stories and understand ourselves. We are all on this journey, right? That we can all relate to Luke. We all want to break out of, right, the womb, the matrix. We want to break out, and maybe we have our parents or whatever obligations or responsibilities holding us back. So, and you know how many people want to leave their 9 to 5 or do whatever and pursue their dreams. Well, that's what Luke is. And I think that's what everybody sees in themselves when they're, and essentially all stories are the same. They're all about, what's that? Is it the Hegelian dialectic where it's like problem, solution, reaction, right? It's like a vicious cycle.
Problem, reaction, solution. Yeah.
I think that's why I appreciate a good plot twist in a movie. When there's like a solid plot twist and I'm like, damn, I did not, it just hits you like a bag of potatoes from left field where you just didn't even catch it. I love that because I think we've been programmed to see it coming. Right? See the conflict coming. And sometimes I'll be, again, watching a movie with my wife and I'll be like, I'll say whatever's going to happen. Yeah, this is going to happen. Boom. And it ends up happening because it's so predictable. Like there's nothing new under the sun anymore. And I think that they've just regurgitated the same story over and over again, just different faces.
Right.
Well, now you even expect the twist, right? So it's like the twist that is meant to throw you off. Ahead of time, you're like, oh, I know there's a twist coming, and it's probably going to be like that guy ends up being the bat. You know what I mean? Like that sort of dynamic then happens where, what is it like? It kind of like breeds contempt when you can predict every single thing that's going to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
So one aspect, the double suns, the Fool card, he's got it's the 0 card, but he's got a sun behind him. And that is very similar to the iconic scene with Luke when he's looking off at the sky, daydreaming about 2 separate suns. And for a lot of people, that's their initiation into wondering about the realm that we're in. And the fact that the sun and the moon appear to be the exact same size. It could be a very fascinating first mystery to initiate anybody, to draw them forward into the hero's journey, so to say. And the biggest hero in the sky is Orion, by the way. That's another initiation. It's like, hey, what picture do you see when you look at the stars? And most people are going to be like, that looks like a dude with a big fucking club chasing the Pleiades, the pretty ladies.
I never understood how people saw that though. Because and again, I mean, maybe we're light polluted and all this stuff, but I don't see it. I don't. But again, it was different for the ancients, and they had. I think there was a connection that was severed with modern times and ancient times, where the ancients, they had a full lit up sky of just stars, and they were able to understand it and go, hey, there's something much more. There's a connection to source, to the one. And by there being light pollution, I think by design, it severs that connection, and it kind of disconnects you from Mother Nature, because that's what pagans were. Pagans are demonized, but they just worshipped nature, right? They understood that nature works in a mechanistic way. I know Paranoid American's been looking into Descartes' mechanistic universe theory, where everything is a cog, everything is interacting with itself. Alchemy, alkindi, everything has a light that interacts with itself. And I think these guys were piggybacking off each other. And by severing that connection to the source, it kind of makes you look at life a different way, right?
Yeah, buddy.
And you can also relate R2D2 as I'm trying to find a picture, as we're talking about the Fool card, who's staring into the abyss, and there's always a dog or something at I'm trying to find a picture. I can't, but you can see R2D2 as his companion, as the dog,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As the dog. And there's also something else in the full card, no?
Yep. I got it. I sent you one in the Telegram, Juan, of the full card with Luke.
Let me pull it up here. I have it here.
Yeah, it's like his animus, or in the
Yes.
lady's case, an anima.
There you go.
The little dog at his ankles.
So is this the Crowley deck, right?
This is the Crowley deck, yes. And look at that moon card upside down. Look how much it really reveals like the anatomy of R2D2 there. And then the sun card also has, that green hill that the sun is at the top of, so much like the abdomen of C3PO. And
do we have any history on George Lucas? Did he have Freemasonic ties or ties to any secret organization? I mean, we can, by design, say that he's a lizard person, right? One of the most
totally
powerful directors.
Freemasons, I don't think so, only because that would, like, Freemasons tend to like to claim the most famous, so they're very rarely shy about claiming some huge celebrity or some huge name that they get to like use as almost a marketing tool. So
yeah,
it would surprise me if Lucas was a Freemason, just because he'd be plastered in the back of every Freemason manual, and it would probably attract a lot more people. To be honest, it'd probably have a lot more sort of Star Wars nerds signing up.
I might accuse him. So his title has the George in it. And so the Knights of Columbus, their patron saint is Saint George. And so iconically, Saint George is riding a horse and slaying the dragon. So for him to be George Lucas very much seems to be wearing a mantle of the Knights of Columbus, if nothing else, which kind of gives them an association with the Knights of Malta in the island.
Well, I can do you one better. That the original versions, the original script of Star Wars, they were supposed to be called Jedi Templars and not Jedi Knights. So there was definitely a direct reference there without having to even bend over to get it.
Then he got a call, and it was like, tone it down a little bit, George, okay? We're going to put you in this position of power, but you have to tone it down. You can't make it so occult, so exoteric. Come on, bro. Tone it down, right? Because
I call him George Ophi Lucas.
So let's talk about this graphic a little bit more here. Let me pull it up here. So can you walk us through? So the reason that we got started into this whole thing, let's explain to the listeners how we got here, because we're pulling up Crowley Tarot. We're pulling up imagery that's, again, Crowley related. What can you break out your explain to people your thesis on why we're even here to begin with?
Yeah, buddy, for sure. So in the very opening scene, when Vader is about to crack into the rebel ship that has the plans for the Death Star, in the very beginning scene, we see these two robots walking side by side. And so they are the two pillars of a Masonic tracing board. We're actually establishing the sun pillar and the moon pillar with the sun card and the moon card. And they're walking side by side. They're twins to one another. So in that aspect, because they are both robots, they're brothers from the same making, made from the same cloth. So they're very much encoding Gemini. And in the Greek pantheon, that gives them a strong affiliation to Artemis and Apollo. And so C3PO would be Apollo, because Apollo has the golden bow. And R2D2 would be more like Artemis, because she has the silver bow. She's the silver aspect of the divine twins. So that's kind of the opening scene, and is part of the reason why I would even think, why would the golden one be like the sun? And why would the silver one be like the moon? Not only are they like them in their elements, but they look like somebody took these exact tarot cards and brought them to life. Would you agree?
You could also say that technically C-3PO is being the sun is farther away from the Earth or the planet that we're on, and the moon is closer just by the height comparisons.
Great point. That is a really good point.
And I'm going to pull up one of my graphics here because this is the beautiful thing about putting things out that people can not only criticize us for, but that they can add to the process, right? Because once we get off of an episode, people hit us up like, "Hey, did you catch this? Did you catch that?"
Right.
And I really love that because it adds to the never ending, because we're not here to say this is the end all be all. We're constantly adding to this research, and we're always on the move, right? And I'm trying to find the graphic that I did, the one that I showed on the Full Metal Alchemist.
I was on a show with Project Cheney the other day, and she made the best analogy that I'm going to steal all the time. But I was saying that we were here to maybe have more of like a conversation, like an improvisational jazz session where I showed up with my instrument and she had hers, and she was like, yeah, we're going to do it like Zappa. And what a great analogy, because Zappa used to say that all the time. He used to describe that you could sit down and you can learn the perfect craft and know how to play that one song or that one solo and shred it perfectly every time and go and play it on stage, 40, 50 times over and over and keep perfecting that one solo. But Zappa liked to just show up and know the general way that like a guitar worked and a general way that music theory worked. So every time he was out for a show, you were always seeing something a little bit different. They're always vibing on something a little bit different, but it didn't mean that like one show to the next was better or worse, or that it was contradicting each other. It was just, you got to experience a slightly different version that time. So yeah, I see these conversations always as like jazz. So I'm gonna call it Zappa from now on.
Yeah, because they're usually not scripted. I mean, we come on here and it's like life is like a box of chocolates, right? Wasn't that Tom Hanks too?
There he is again.
Horoscope. Again, another great movie. But I made this graphic because obviously I'm obsessed with the Chariot card ever since episode 80. It's been in the back of my subconscious, and boom, here we have the golden one, the one in armor. But who? And this is why I wanted to do only two episodes, so we don't. It's so broad, and we're only focusing on episode 4 and 5, but again, while putting this out and people are adding to it, SB, shout out to SB, hit me up and he was like, hey, listen, because I've always said that the Chariot card here, the Crowley Chariot, signifies the creator of reality, right? Like some sort of god or demiurge. And literally later on in the next episode, and the one that we didn't cover, that I didn't watch, I forgot that C-3PO becomes the god of the Jabberwock, the Ewoks. So literally, like they worship him, and I'm like, okay, well, there it is. It's how you're saying the embodiment of the tarot. But can you explain for those that maybe don't understand, Gabe, why they do this? Because I even sometimes wonder, why do they want to invoke? Is it because I know I like the way that Mario puts it, that the tarot is where you have the major and the minor. The major being the esoteric and the minor being the exoteric, and the soul's journey, right? The soul ascent. Yeah. But why do you think that they try to emulate this and portray and put it out there? And again, this is a hypothesis, but why is that?
Well, we gotta maybe start with, the most basic definition of magic is, the manipulation of natural elements in concordance to your will. And so a lot of what they are doing here is they're syncing up their systems and their symbols to have concordance to natural elements. And so the beginning, these ideas that we're going to lay forward, beginning with the Fool card, we're starting at the beginning of the trumps. The beginning of the movie opens with the sound of trumpets, the iconic call of the trumpets. So these associations are immortalized in our consciousness. And what'll be interesting is the story arc actually evolves and changes. So like I'm saying that these guys, they look just like the sun and the moon card at the most fundamental basic level. But like you were saying, C3PO, he goes through a fall, he collapses, it gets dismantled, and then he gets put back together again. And then he goes through the hero's journey. He apotheosizes and becomes, like you said, a god for the Ewoks. In the strangest way, they are almost like each character is kind of like a voodoo doll of a personality type, is one way to think about it, which is really fascinating because I see strong correspondence with these droids as having a really wild relationship to the Pride movement and the LGBT debacle that
QR code, LGBT QR code, plus CW13.
Right, because think about it, and it's just fascinating how it's coming to fruition right now in the fall of Rome, because the robots, they were not allowed to come into the bar. There was actually a machine that looked like an alarm that was going off to tell them
prejudice. They're treated like shit. Yeah.
Yes, so they have a strange correspondence, and then we had that legal battle about whether people could deny you service to make a wedding cake for a gay wedding, or if you could force them to.
And also is it the Ewoks that traffic them at the beginning of the movie, where it's like they have all these droids and they sell them, so it's like almost like hinting at like some not human trafficking, but a droid trafficking, a black market of some sorts. I don't know.
Well, that is interesting. So those are the Jawas.
The Jawas, yeah.
The Jawas, and I find them highly correspondent with the Jews, like the Old Testament Jews.
So we can't say that on YouTube because obviously we have some controversy going on right now, but sure, we'll allow it. Hopefully
I think we could blame it on old what's his nuts here,
Kanye West,
George Lucas.
Now you said the robots are almost like little voodoo dolls, and my ears perked up because I know that when Juan hears voodoo doll, he thinks homunculus. But I was wondering, out of all the characters in this first movie, if there was some that were the most representative of homunculi, what would they be? Would it be the two robots? Would those be the homunculus?
The clones, bro. The OG homunculus, dude. The Boba Fett and not Jabba the Hutt, but who's the other one? Jango Fett and Boba Fett are the two.
So those are the most homunculus.
So yeah, because the one of them is the original seed and one is the son, right? We have the two sons. One is the father and one is the son, but that's the OG. That's why I want to break down like almost, at least we do pairs of movies because they are the original homunculus. And I think maybe that's why they can't even shoot straight, because if you notice, they all suck at shooting. Well, a part of the homunculus lore is that they're not perfect; they're imperfect.
They're all fucked up.
They're all fucked up, exactly. So they can't see. They're veiled, right? They can't see through the hood. And but yeah, the OG. Since the very beginning, the OG homunculi were the stormtroopers. Those were the ones because they're to clone. They're clones. Attack of the Clones, and they were the ones that actually. So part of the homunculus lore is it does the bidding of its creator. And what's it? And I think it's episode 3, execute order 66 or whatever the fuck. The homunculus do the bidding of their creator, and they take out the Jedis. They do the bidding of the practitioner. So they are programmed to do just one thing, and they do it. And we see this in the lore. So again, they say that. I can't unsee now. George Ophiuchus was emulating the Anunnaki story, and if you in the Anunnaki there is homunculus. So if I had to pin it on one thing being a homunculus, and dude, this plays right into my research of the Platonic solid, the embodiment of ideas. And by you saying that these are the embodiment, and there's some sort of simulacra of these tarot cards, of these archetypes, because right here, Campbell's description of the heroes mythical journey can be seen in the Matrix movies, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, the Harry Potter books and films. This journey is taken by the hero archetype and features elements that are universal. It is not only an adventure, but a Gnostic-like spiritual quest. So, how many kids grew up watching these movies and emulated these? They have literally created a microcosm of this at Disney World. Right? They have it's much more than role playing. I actually just saw this article that therapists are prescribing Dungeons and Dragons role-playing games for people to get over their depression or whatever mental states. And of course, because things line up very weirdly for me whenever I'm doing the show or producing something. And I remember, and I sent you videos of it, Slick, when I went to go take my son, they were having, it's done at this warehouse, and they play basketball on one side, and there's like courts, and people rent them out to do different things.
Yeah.
Indoor soccer. It's an indoor soccer place, but they use in the back, they have basketball courts and stuff like that. And of course, I don't know if you knew this, Thomas, but there is a lightsaber league. So dudes dress up and they have they fight with lightsabers. And I remember I was there in the morning and I'm looking at my wife and I go, what, the Saber League, something or other? I'll Google it here in a second. And dude, there's grown ass men with lightsabers, and there's it's like a whole league. It's a competition, and they're fighting with they have like custom lightsabers, dude. Super sick. And I'm like, I want to try it.
Yeah, I've got a hot take here, but I mean, could it be any more or less useless than Taekwondo?
I don't practice Taekwondo, and I don't really know what is it like a martial art?
Like the art of redirecting someone else's attack. It's like being a professional at just not fighting back. So I mean, maybe taking like lightsaber defense courses could even be a little bit more useful than that.
So I don't know if it's this one, Light Speed Saber League, but this is the premise of the whole thing. So they they dress up. This one's in Texas. They dress up, and dude,
or I'll say fencing too. Like this couldn't be any less useful than fencing, right?
I mean, it's whatever you make of it, bro. I guess. I mean, if these people find it's a hobby. I mean, this is a hobby, right? A lot of people could say this about podcasting. It's like, what are you getting out of this? I mean, you know what I mean? It's up to whoever. But yeah, dude, I witnessed this firsthand. It's dudes fighting with lightsabers, bro. It's the Saber League. So this for some people is not just a movie. It crosses barriers. It transmutes itself into their life, and that's sympathetic magic. If you're able to affect somebody's reality, that is magic. And I mean that's at its core, that's what pretty much everything is. I mean, if you are set out, right? Paranoid American is set out to create a fan base, a loyal fan base. Right? You want people to like your stuff. So you make good shit. You make something that's going to draw people's attention so they're here to stay. And essentially they mold these worlds, these microcosms so well that it blends into the macro, and they will literally make simulacras of these places like Disneyland or Disney World, where they have these voodoo dolls in real life.
I got another hot take here. So, and I'm a little bit of a heel. I'm not a Star Wars hater per se, but I just remember liking Spaceballs a whole lot more than Star Wars, especially when I saw them pretty much the same year at the same time. So the Rick Moranis version is always like my go-to. But part of me always wonders, specifically with this movie and a few others, now that Disney owns it, I can kind of lump them all together and just say Disney movies. But how much of Star Wars, and this is a question for both of you guys, how much of Star Wars is actually like so beyond good, and that it's this quintessential archetype in the hero's journey? How much of that is true versus it's just been nonstop? Like since the day it came out, they never stopped marketing it. There's never been a day that Hollywood has not been pushing money to make sure that it stays on you. And like one thing hit and the next one hit, and now you're talking earlier about, oh, why recast it and make it woke and reshoot it and do the same thing? Well, it's because if you're watching it with your kid, that has never not seen an iPad in front of their face and has always been looking at 3D renderings growing up. And then you go back and you show them this 1970s special effects, and it's like, Dad, how come I can see the strings on the airplane? You know, this is kind of lame. So I really do think that part of it is remaking it, not for you, but it's so you can like watch it with your kids. And now the kids have like a more realistic vision of it. Because if you watched the original in the 70s, it probably looked real enough that it was mind blowing, because that was also sort of pioneering the whole visual effects industry. You know, Industrial Light and Magic kind of came from that movie and everything that came afterwards. But you watch it now 50 years later, it might not have that same ability to completely suspend your disbelief, especially if you're like this digital native. So now it has to look realistic, otherwise you can see through it. And it's going to keep doing that over and over and over and never stop. And really, I think it's like, again, how much of it is because it's an outstanding movie versus it's just never been stopped being marketed to you.
That's a beautiful point, actually, that you bring up, because yeah, how much is it? But it became its own thing, right?
How many like Academy Award performances are in this movie?
I'll Google it right now. Hold on. But you bring up.
Well, I mean, personally, like how many scenes in here? I mean, there's some really amazing quotes, but how many times is it like, man, the acting alone is selling me on this, or has it always been the entire package?
Right. And you know, the other thing is it keeps everybody invested in the space. You know, the mythology of space, and that space is something that we can conquer if we just keep on pushing it out to old NASA. Be right back, fellas.
So we have Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. We have Best Original Score, which I don't know what that means.
Best the music.
Okay, so Best Original Score. This is 1978, because how you're saying, as time evolves, you know, the alchemy changes, the results change. So of course, because in the alchemical process, you can only boil your piss so many times before it just evaporates or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So Best Original Score, Best Visual Effects, Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Sound Mixing, Best Film Editing, Special Achievement Academy Award, Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay. But how much can we even trust that the Academy Awards? Because
what I was gonna say, like how much faith do you put in the Academy Awards to tell you what is subjectively good? I've never my whole life understood it, but I know it's a thing.
But you know what I'm saying though, like because they get you that way too, like, oh, so prestigious. Well, when in actuality it's dog shit. Because I mean, there's books that are bestsellers and they're fucking to me they're garbage. You know what I'm saying? So absolutely, I think that it's a slippery slope, Thomas. But you bring up an excellent point where how much is it really that good? But
well, I really do at a deep level believe that Disney and a lot of Hollywood movies are weaponized. The nostalgia they represent are weaponized against you and your kids, directly pointed at your wallet. Maybe more so than trying to get you to worship some pagan god. They just want you to open that wallet up, and then they'll take that money and they'll worship their pagan god with the money. You know,
and they sexualize it too, right? Well, they have the Princess Leia sexualized here in this poster. You have Darth Vader, very phallic like, right? Fallacy. He's literally a dickhead here. And then we have the moon symbolism too, with the Death Star. And even the X-Wings are kind of fallacy too. This is kind of like a sperm and the egg here, if you really look at this, you know, symbol.
Good call.
If you looked at it real quick, you're like, are they trying to? And I get to that later, because again, like I said, I make some outlandish observations, to say the least. They're both dressed in white. We have the Apollo and the Artemis symbolism here, and then we have the Trinity, right? We have the Father, the Son, and the Feminine. Which, if you notice at the beginning of the movie, he kind of lusts over his sister. She's so beautiful, right? And in the next movie, Empire Strikes Back, she kisses him on the lips, but that's before he knew that was his sister, his twin.
It's so Greek. It's such like a Greek tragedy, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. But again, very Game of Thronesy, where it's the incest, and then obviously you have here the two, again, the sun and the moon, or maybe even two pillars. Right. So,
and they're standing on the sacred hill, the pregnant hill of whatever,
or Golgotha, the place of the skull, right? Because you have the upside down cross here, and he's right. He's the chosen one. He's the Messiah. He is the one. He is Neo, to free his people and to break out of the matrix. He's the last Jedi, right? That's the last movie, The Last Jedi,
Last Templar.
Yeah, the Last Templar, to where, there's only the darkness exists, and it's the Sith. So very interesting. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's like, it kind of hints at that. And you pulled it up. Can you send me that graphic, Gabe, where people are linking this to the Tartaria narrative, where it's like, hey, they're hinting at the princess, not Princess Leia, but the other one, I forgot her name. But some people Amidala, they're pushing the Tartarian narrative with Star Wars. And yeah, send me that graphic so I can pull it up real quick. And I want to read here some Joseph Campbell, because the hero's journey begins with what Campbell describes as the call to adventure. And the hero with 1,000 faces, Campbell explains, the first stage of the mythological journey, which we have designated the call to adventure, signifies that destiny has summoned the hero and transferred his spiritual center of gravity from within the pale of his society to a zone unknown. This faithful region of both treasures and danger may be variously represented as a distant land, a forest, a kingdom underground beneath the waves or above the sky, a secret island, lofty mountaintop, or profound dream state, but is always a place of strangely fluid and polymorphous beings, unimaginable torment, superhuman deeds, and impossible delights. The hero can go forth of his own volition to accomplish the adventure, as did Theseus when he arrived in his father's city, Athens, and heard the horrible history of the Minotaur, or he may be carried or sent abroad by some benign or malignant agent, as was Odysseus, driven about the Mediterranean by the winds of the angered god Poseidon. The adventure may begin as a mere blunder, or still again, one may be only casually strolling when some passing phenomenon catches the wandering eye and lures one away from the frequented paths of man. Examples might be multiplied ad infinitum from every corner of the world. So, and this is what Campbell borrowed the term, a borrowed term that Campbell says, monomyth, from Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, from Joyce's Finnegan Wake, and I've never read that, which is a book from 1939. And Luke receives his call to adventure when he discovers the holographic message. So that was the trigger, right? This angelic, she's so beautiful, right? Boom, he's locked in already. I wonder what she's talking about, right?
He got hooked on 3D Pornhub.
Yeah, dude. So we have here Luke's numinous journey beckons him to a higher purpose. Luke seeks and finds Kenobi, the concept of what Campbell describes as a supernatural aid and a refusal of the call. Luke Skywalker is a solar hero archetype following the footsteps of Apollo, Horus, Jesus, Mithras, Bacchus, Attis, and Dionysus. And then we have the picture that we showed earlier with the two suns, symbolic of that. Luke Skywalker is a solar archetype who ponders his purpose in life while looking at Tatooine's two suns, symbolizing both Luke and Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker being Darth Vader. Anakin's solar symbolism will be presented later in this chapter. So I was reading this because, again, it's the exoteric. It's something that people have probably already read. And the name Luke originates from the Latin lux, meaning light. His last name, Skywalker, when combined with his first name, means the light that walks across the sky, which is the sun. So it's a sort of solar worship type of thing. And the Tatooine has the two suns allegorizing its two favorite sons, and that's Sons. This identifies Luke as the solar heir to his father, who was considered to be a Jedi messianic chosen one. So, and they do that again at the beginning. And we see that with the graphic I had pulled up earlier, which which I don't know where it's at now, but yeah, so it's speaking to us on a subconscious level. And obviously George Ophiuchus has borrowed from all these other myths. And I think of the Death Star too, like a Nibiru, right? Where it's able to come back and disrupt things. So who knows? I'm sure that these elites are reading these same stories. I mean, they know about this, and they know that maybe the truth is stranger than fiction. What if they're showing us something in plain sight that maybe was true, right? They say a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So
have you guys ever, because this is building a little bit what I was saying about weaponizing movies, but not just the nostalgia. There's a really great video that explains how that Mariah Carey Christmas song came about. And it wasn't that they just got in the studio and said, let's make a Christmas song, and then it just happened to come out really well. They sat down and they kind of formulaically deconstructed every other popular Christmas song that had come out for the last few decades. And they figured out the perfect chord progression. They figured out the perfect times to introduce the chorus and then go back into a verse. They figured out the perfect sort of combinations of notes and you know, like the cadence and the beat. And they took all of these things together, and all of those kind of went into this perfect formula, how to create the perfect Christmas song. And of course, part of it is catching lightning in a bottle, because not everyone can just sit down and write it together. But there's also plenty of videos that show you, even in popular music, so many of the most popular, you know, like top 40 songs tend to use the exact same chord progressions. And it's not because those chord progressions are just like inherently good. It's just because we've all been trained and we understand. And the whole part of music is both subverting expectation and then meeting expectation. So you can't just come right out of left field with an avant-garde song or an avant-garde movie and then expect the masses to all kind of fall over it. But if you play on what they expect and you give them what they expect, and you only subvert their expectations a little bit and not by too much, then you kind of got a hit on your hands. But it turns very, very formulaic. So the point here with Star Wars is that I think kind of like that Mariah Carey Christmas song, where they sat down and they said, what's the perfect formula first, and then we'll use that formula to make the end product. I think that happened here, and it was just a really good application of having Joseph Campbell himself, you know, go to the Star Wars ranch and sit down and kind of like refine all of this, and kind of like make sure that this was a true one-to-one analogy and use of that hero's journey. And I think they did it so well. But I go back to, like, is it the movie that's good, or did they just play all the perfect notes?
yeah, was the initiation just that well done instead of it being a good movie?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Is the magic that strong? And what was it here that you sent me? And this, for some reason, StreamYard keeps kicking me out. It's kind of pissing me off. But that's
so this is a text from Crowley himself.
Oh,
this
shit.
This is from Liber Cordis Cinsti Serpente. And there's a line here. If you search for Death-Star.
Yeah, I got it here pulled
they
up.
Actually call it out by name. And the line is, I tremble at thy coming, oh my God, for thy messenger was more terrible than the Death Star.
On the threshold stood the fulminant figure of evil. So is that Darth Vader? The horror of emptiness with his ghastly eyes like poisonous wells. He stood, and the chamber was corrupt. The air stank.
That's the trash compactor scene.
Let's see here.
The chamber was corrupt, full of trash.
Wow.
He was an old and gnarled fish, more hideous than the shells of Abaddon.
Which could be a Dagon reference.
He enveloped me with his demon tentacles, and that's that tentacle scene in the trash compactor where the tentacle monster grabs his leg and pulls him under into the abyss, right? Abaddon. Fellas. Yeah, the 8 fears.
And what year is this? So just so we know, like, this absolutely didn't come out anytime near Star Wars did.
So this came out in... Yikes. I know there's a list of... The work was not reprinted. Yeah, that's the problem with this, bro. That it says publication date 95, but that's maybe when it was published, not when it was written. That's the issue with Crowley. That some of his work is so obscure that
Yeah, so I see a version where it was published in 52, but again, that was when it was published, not when it was written. It's part of Liber 65, it looks like.
Yeah, so it's probably early, say mid early 1900s. So way before Star Wars.
Yeah.
But dude, great find, man. That's this is why
That
we
is
keep
a
you. This
trip.
is why we keep you around, bro. You're
Yeah, man. So in that scene, Han Solo, he says, "Oh, what a remarkable smell you've discovered." And that's really fascinating because it's the tower card. The trash compactor scene is the scene that is an unpacking of the tower card, and the tower card is card number 16, and 16 is the number or the periodic number for sulfur. And so when he talks about the smell she's discovered, he's commenting on the sulfur because this is the tower card. Specifically the Crowley Tower card. Yeah, man. Yes. And this is actually what we're going through right now with information. The walls are closing in on the Googlog of Google is, compacting our options when we search for things. There's less and less results every day. It's also... We're kind of jumping ahead. I'm just going to kind of tease that out there because I do have a big breakdown on the tarot or the tower card, specifically number 16.
So if you want to back up, we can back up to again where we're at the solar myth. That way we don't get too ahead of ourselves. And I just want to say Skywalker receives a spiritual aid and gnosis from Obi-Wan Kenobi. Campbell says for those who have not refused to call, the first encounter of the hero's journey is with a protective figure. Often a literal old crone or old man who provides the adventurer with amulets against the dragon's forces he is about to pass. So the amulet being the lightsaber of his father. That's the samurai sword, the samurai code. And then also you have the uncle that before he gets to Kenobi, to Obi-Wan, Luke's uncle calls old Ben a wizard. He's like, it's just a crazy old wizard, right? Because they in this entire movie, the Force is like this ancient religion. It's got a mythology and all this stuff. So he calls him an old wizard, and he says that wizard's just a crazy old man. And he stresses to keep Luke one more season multiple times, and he's annoyed because he won't stay. And let's see.
The part where Luke is contemplating, could that mean old Ben Kenobi, because he hears the name Obi-Wan Kenobi and he thinks out loud in front of his aunt and uncle, and that is Twilight language.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally thinking about the law of correspondence. Looks like, sounds like, is like, relates to. In its kind of what ends up setting him free. He follows that instinct. I shot you the Queen Amidala images and the Tartarian princess.
This is the scene where he gives him the lightsaber, and he explains to him, and he also says one thing that stood out to me, where he talks about, because there's like a sexualization that I found in the Star Wars, and I don't know if it's speaking to like the subconscious, but he talks about how the Force penetrates us. So he says, the Force, it surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together, and I don't know, I just found that kind of weird, that language, right? It penetrates us, kind of sexual. So that's just an observation that I found, and there's also other scenes that I found really sexual as well that I don't know if I'm reaching or not, but we'll get to them when we do. And
does Obi-Wan just do something for you?
No, not really, but I'm just putting it out there. I don't know, because again, that's like the whole thing with Disney putting sex in the Disney logo, right, where it talks to us on a subconscious. So I don't know if it's that or oh look at this graphic. Did you just make this on the fly, bro? While we were
No, I've had these in the chamber for a while. You can pull up any one of them, but that most recent one is a perfect fit. He's not just any Hierophant card. That scene where the C-3PO actually asks to be shut down. He says, "If you don't need me any longer, sir, I'll just shut down." And he just his eyes turn off.
So
and he goes dark.
This is the golly, let me find it. This is the one that we were talking about where they're pushing the whole Tartarian narrative with I forgot her name, but anyways, Amidala, you have this weird headdress, and then they take this, and this was the old world. So are they, again, because the truth is stranger than fiction, are they hinting at a lost civilization? Plus, and in this particular clip, they showed the architecture, right? It looks very similar. Yes. Very like Arabic type of thing. It looked, very round and organic. So they're just hinting at that.
That second one too also is almost like an inverted sacred bull symbolism, where instead of the horns both pointing up, they're both pointing down.
Interesting.
Good point. Yeah.
And I want to pull up here this other graphic, the one that you're saying. This one here. So the Hierophant, the man of mysteries, right? The number 5. We have here again the talisman, maybe the lightsaber. We have, I don't know what this signifies, but here we go.
And he's receiving the image of Isis here.
Oh, shit! Yeah.
And so this scene is the embodiment of this tarot card specifically, because you see the eyeballs of the tetramorph, the 4-cornered animals, their eyes are turned off, much like C-3PO turns his eyes off.
Whoa.
And then as his eyes turn off, R2-D2's eyes illuminate even more and bring forward the sacred message. This literally the message that saves the universe. And this is also encoding, I believe, a lunar, we'll just say an eclipse. I think it's a sacred eclipse. I think it's specifically a lunar standstill eclipse, which is a very special eclipse cycle, 18.6 year cycle. But this also could relate to certain people can see on a spectrum that others cannot. And I believe that I've recently, our buddy Exertus has been bringing forward the tetrachromacy, and the fact that some people see 4 times more spectrum than others, and even other people see on a pentachromacy, which is 5 times more. And this is the Hierophant, card number 5. Just saying. I think there's something about having extrasensory perception and maybe a sacred bloodline of people who have extrasensory perception.
The Jedi, that they are the Force. What if the Force is like symbolic for the occultus mundi, for the hidden world that is outside the fabric of reality, right? Yeah. I mean, that's also a possibility too. And they're initiated. They're initiated into the secret mystery. Here, this author goes on to say that Ben, the Hermetic sage, symbolizes Thoth Hermes Trismegistus, who is the keeper of hidden truths, esoteric knowledge, and magic. So he is the wizard. He is who's the wizard? Not maybe Merlin, like the Merlin figure, where he teaches again. So Kenobi knows the truth about Luke's father, but is reluctant to divulge the information. Ben is also aware that Luke has a twin sister, but again, keeps the knowledge to himself. So again, occulting that knowledge from Luke, and he gives him the weapon, which the author goes on here to say the lightsaber symbolizes the sword of the samurai who, like the Jedi, were a chivalric order of warrior, mystics, and philosophers, becoming the military nobility of medieval and early modern Japan. Both are immediately identified with elegant swords or sabers. And here Campbell mentions the notion of refusing the call, which Luke does. Listen, I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it. So he's, again, pushing back against Kenobi. And Kenobi's, that's your uncle talking. Luke's temporary refusal ultimately leads to the death of his aunt and uncle at the hands of the Imperial forces. And he was sadder when Kenobi died than he was when his freaking family died. His aunt and uncle, when they were killed, he was more tore up about friggin' Ben dying, and when he was with Yoda in the movie, he's like, I gotta go find. He's like, bro, you're gonna die if you leave right now. And so I don't know. That's kind of weird that he wasn't even connected to his family. Luke then accepts his faith and embraces his destiny, saying to Obi-Wan, I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. So he wants to be initiated into the Jedi Force. So again, very interesting. And
you know, one of the first things that Ben says to him is, one must be cautious out here in the Youngland wastes. It's spelled like Yunland, Youngland, which is just fascinating to me because I believe that like I said, that the Jedi Order are representing, in modern day context, are representing the Jungian Gnostic sect. And I think they're quite alive and well. And some of these archetypal strings are being pulled still today, more and more so, actually, in modern context. So, yeah, isn't this a great fool card? It's so obvious, right?
I wonder if there's I'm sure there is, a Star Wars tarot deck.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, I wonder if somebody's...
of course, dude. There's a tarot deck for every sort of intellectual property out there you can think of.
Interesting.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'd be interested to see if they did it right.
Whatever that is, right?
Uh-huh.
I want to show this other graphic that you sent me, which I find interesting. Let's see here. Because this is what they were first, and you have it upside down now that I saw it. But this one here,
isn't that something?
Let me pull it up. Yeah, it's upside down, right? The what they were first brought in on, the droids are brought in on the holy.
Yes.
The how's this called again?
Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant, not the Holy Grail. Ark of the Covenant.
You got it. And so the Ark of the Covenant was, supposedly carries the Torah, and the Ark of this film carries the R2. And that's one of the big reveals here. If you pull up either one of those Princess Leia ones that I shot to you, Princess Leia is absolutely she's the High Priestess card. She's Lahaya Princess. Leia Princess Leia. She's the higher priestess. Because in her very initiatory scene, in the very beginning, the iconic scene where she's putting a message into R2-D2. Oh, yeah. So here is this is Darth Vader as the death card. You can see he's a tin can, a black suited, armored dark character riding on these white horses, which look how much the horse looks like the friggin' stormtroopers, right? And then he chokes out this fellow with this goofy looking helmet. Well, if you look at the details of his helmet, it actually does have the split on the helmet of the guy he's choking out.
That's not fish head. Which
corresponds with the fish head of the Pope here. It's such a trip.
Interesting. And also, because I accidentally said the Holy Grail earlier, but if you think about how he was trying to protect Princess Leia because he knows that's his daughter, how when in the Empire Strikes Back, he's like, she's going to stay with you here. Nothing's going to happen. But obviously he changes the deal, right? And I forget his name, the black dude, tries to help him escape. But he kind of sort of wanted to protect her in a way. And if you think about the symbolism of the Holy Grail and what that signifies, right? Maybe it's the bloodline of the chosen one, of the chosen Juan, if you will, right? The Messiah, right? Because Luke is the Skywalker. He could maybe be the Illuminator, right? The one that bears the torch of Prometheus type of character. Again, the one that illuminates. So very interesting connection there. But yeah, I said that by mistake, and it just made me think.
I've got a tangent on that a little bit because you're mentioning the Holy Grail, and I'll bring this back to my my always running theory that the true origin of religion and philosophy and consciousness is probably psychedelics or drugs at some really deep level, which is the origin for all this cow and bull worship. But also at the very heart of Star Wars, I believe they're mostly drug runners, right? They're all running spice around the galaxy. And there's a few times when they decide to abandon their payload because they're going to get in trouble from the Empire because they're running this illegal spice.
Oof, the placenta
so I
meth.
think, and I think too, what's going on behind the scenes is that just like actual clergy today, and just like religion today, like everyone is really kind of just transporting drugs around, and everyone thinks it's this black market like secret thing, when really it's the answer to all of this. Like maybe spice is behind the force, and no one just wants to admit it.
Oh damn, bro! Like it's what gives you the power type of thing. It's like it's
just like, you know, eating mushrooms turns into the Holy Eucharist, but after 10,000 years, now you just got this little cracker that doesn't do anything. But it used to be a dried heroic dose of a mushroom, right? It used to be like a 3.5 gram. And just like that, like everyone thinks that they're doing this spice and that, oh, don't tell anyone, or it's just for the dregs of society. Just kind of like today, where these enlightening psychoactive substances are for like the dregs of society or the criminals, or to always be underground.
And now that you say that, I think there's a scene in episode 2 where I think it's either Boba Fett. I think he's being offered drugs or something. I'm gonna have to. This is why we're doing this. But
they just call it spice, but there's like multiple types of drugs that kind of like spice is this umbrella term in Star Wars.
Yeah, holy, nice weave.
It's been openly admitted that the Dune storyline is parallel.
Well, they also call it spice, right?
The Star Wars, and in Dune they call it spice. So people have accused Star Wars of ripping off the Dune universe, like blatantly. And in fact, arguments have been made that the Dune universe is superior. So that's been kind of flushed out in the past. But I love that you mentioned the drug thing, Thomas, because that's.
I'll always bring up the drug thing.
Yeah, bro. Good weed.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And completely forgot. Oh, so. So we have this I'm going to talk about the Force. The Force is a mystical energy field that binds and unites everything. In Zoro, the concept of good against evil, or more appropriately, light against dark, is lifted from the religion of the ancient Persia called Zoroastrianism. Within Zoroastrian theology, Ahura Mazda light powers are negated by Angra Mainyu, or Ahriman, darkness, who is the Zoroastrian equivalent of the devil, who is assisted by a host of demons. So maybe Darth Vader and the homunculi, which some scholars have hinted at being artificial demons, is Darth Vader this figure that is assisted by a host of demons. You could call the stormtroopers a host of demons because they are homunculi. So Zoroastrian eschatology contains elements that would enter Christianity, a perfect kingdom, that the coming of the Messiah, the resurrection of the dead, and life everlasting. Within the Star Wars saga, the positive energies of the Jedi are negated and in forever conflict with the negative Sith. The term Sith originates from the name of the Egyptian god Set, or Typhon. Set is a god of the desert and storms in the ancient Egyptian religion. And later, Messi is also the god of darkness and chaos. In ancient Greek, the god's name is given as Seth, hence the Sith lords, who are connoisseurs of darkness and controlled chaos. So again, this
is an important branch in the Gnostic bloodlines. In the Gnostic schools, there's a divide between the Sethians and the Valentinians, and the Sethians are of the mindset that the demiurge is evil, and that we are here as prisoners of the realm. And it is the Valentinians that are like, no, it's just a misunderstanding, that the demiurge is misunderstood, or there's some sort of neurosis, or that there's redemption to the demiurge. And that's the Valentinian school. So I just wanted to put that forward, that Scythian divide is a real thing, you know. ideologically.
You're absolutely right. And there's also the sect, I forget the name of it, that believe that the serpent in the Garden of Eden was the true Messiah. I forgot which sect of Gnostics. There's always over 50 sects of Gnostics and Gnosticism. But yeah, absolutely good weave on that because, yeah, you're right. The struggle of light against the dark side of the Force, Jedi versus Sith, is the prime construct of the entire Star Wars monomyth. There is a seductive lure associated with the dark side of the Force since it offers faster pathway to absolute power and thus an easier way to obtain supernatural powers. And it makes me think of, what was that guy that I sent you, Thomas? The King of the Jews? Zebiah, forget his name. The guy that believed that...
I sent him home early.
The guy that believed in transgression to where you could be as evil as you wanted to and you were still gonna
Sabbatai Zeddy.
Yeah, it reminds me of that, where the Sith, they're evil, and no matter, they still have the power. And that's what I tell people about the occult. The occult is this is a metaphor for the occult. Either you're on the left hand path or the right hand path, or you're a white magician or you're a black, but it's all the same shit. So it's all how you use it, right? And you can think of the regular layman people in the Star Wars universe as the ones who don't practice the occult, as the regular people who don't have the power of either or, right? So again, very interesting connection.
I always like to just bring that term accelerationists. People
yes.
who transgress as because they're so enthusiastic to bring the end of the world forward. It's amazing, if think about it in the terms of magic. If magic is like harnessing the inevitable natural events in concordance to your will, they just jump on with this collapse. It's coming. You place your bets, on the stock market.
Join the dark side. We have cookies.
But this is kind of the rebels too, right? Like if I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, the rebels are sort of like the Antifa of the star system, right? So, and I'm just gonna say something kind of like funny and stupid and radical, but what if after Darth Vader, there's like, maybe Darth Vader's like the Republican, right? And then in 4 years, you have a chance to vote in like the not Darth Vader that might balance him. But the rebels are taking it way to the next level. They're just like, let's burn down the entire country. Let's burn down the entire empire because we don't like this one guy that happens to be running the empire right now. So again, going into like weaponizing this, it's almost putting this programming out that rebelling is good. Like no matter what, just rebel against the empire, regardless of how much the empire is built up. So if you want to keep going with the Christian analogies, you could almost say that it's trying to take down, like the norms of society now. And this whole push for making the rebels always the good guys by default is sort of part of this cultural programming.
Yeah. And just the other day, I learned that the word radical literally just translates to pertaining to the roots. So to be in touch with your roots, to have common sense, to be, a man of the earth, all these things are enough to be considered radical. It's really fascinating, the foundational definition of that concept. I love that.
So we have here the hero's journey. We talked about the call to adventure. We have the supernatural aid, the refusal of the call, and I'm going to walk us through here, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi is that supernatural aid when he is struck down by Lord Vader, which Lord also means like stepfather. And Narco Longo has talked about, right, in the Old Testament, the Lord or God, or Yahweh, they always change it up. So Lord is its own.
Or Moloch. Moloch also translates to Lord.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, it's exactly what it means. Yeah.
Oh shit! There you go. So
one of it's like 20 million different sayings, but yeah.
So the refusing the call is one of them, and then we have here the next step is the next phase of the hero's journey is crossing of the first threshold, and this kind of making me think of what Crowley liked to do, the crossing of the abyss, where they cross the abyss and they leave the ego behind. So, according to Campbell, the next phase of the hero's journey is crossing of the first threshold. This occurs when the hero leaves behind his or her world of familiarity and enters the realm of the unknown. And Campbell explains with the personifications of his destiny to guide and aid him, the hero goes forth in his adventure until he comes to the threshold guardian at the entrance of the zone of the magnified power. Such custodians bound the world in 4 directions, also up and down, standing for the limits of the hero's present sphere or life horizon. Beyond them is darkness, the unknown, and danger, just as beyond the parental watch is danger to the infant, and beyond the protection of a society, danger to the members of the tribe. The usual person is more than content. He is even proud to remain within the indicated bounds, and popular belief gives him every reason to fear so much as the first step into the unexplored. Thus the sailors of bold vessels of Columbus, breaking the horizon of the medieval mind, sailing, as they thought, into boundless ocean of immortal being that surrounds the cosmos, like the endless mythological serpent biting its tail, had to be cozened and urged on like children because of their fear of the fabled leviathans, mermaids, dragons, kings, and other monsters of the deep. I don't even know what the fuck I just read, but whatever he said there. So the crossing of the first threshold, getting to the goal, and he in essence, he's undergoing an alchemical transmutation. He is transforming. We see this young Luke Skywalker, immature, kind of inexperienced, and we see his transformation. And I wanted to point out some of the quotes that stood out to me. And again, these are iconic quotes, right? When Vader, when they're arguing in the ship, and one of the generals said, Vader says to one of the generals, "I find your lack of faith disturbing." That scene, and the general's like, "Oh, you're talking about your old religion and how conjuring, right? Conjuring up your like what he wanted to happen." He talks about the occult. So it's pretty much, they're referencing at this magical power, and I just thought it was interesting that they put it in there. And then here we have, going along, Luke ventures off his home planet for the first time. So Luke Skywalker thus crosses the threshold. And by leaving behind Tatooine's horizon, which have always been his reality. So he was in this reality tunnel, in this matrix, right? He was penetrating out of the matrix. Han Solo, right? They hire Han Solo, which is a adventurer, pirate, smuggler, and he's an adventurer, pirate, smuggler, and pilot.
Drug dealer.
No, and a pilot. I'm sorry, because a pirate
he's
and
also
pilot,
a drug dealer.
And he's a drug dealer. So his sidekick is the giant Sasquatch-like familiar. They call him a familiar named Chewbacca. Chewie is his Solo's nickname for him, and he's a Wookiee. So Solo's, this is the authors saying here, Solo's mercurial personality plays off of Skywalker's innocence, yet Solo becomes the hero that Luke yearns to be. And let me see here.
So I got a question on Solo, specifically his role here.
Good.
Because I think out of all the theories in Star Wars, my number one favorite theory by like a huge margin is that Han Solo shot first, because it completely changes the entire dynamic of the entire story. So you got, and the ideas of that, it was just kind of like overlooked in the script, or that
what are you talking about,
read
bro?
into it. So what do you mean, what am I talking about? One of the most controversial edits for the original Star Wars is they remove a scene where Han Solo is the first one that fires off a shot. So technically that's the shot that starts the entire war. But in and the whole story is that the Empire, was the aggressor. But there's this one scene in the original edit where Han Solo is legitimately the original aggressor in the entire sort of story.
Damn.
And it truly does. It changes the entire movie depending on whether or not he really did shoot first.
Is this the bar scene where Greedo
It is? Yes.
Okay, well, that's so interesting that this is the defining moment, because this is the identifying markation of his position here on the Emperor card, because of the leg is lifted up in the shot that he takes here from under his leg. He's shooting from the hip, from under the table, right? This is what defines him very predominantly as this Emperor card number 4. And he also has his personality type on the Enneagram is the number 4, the individual. So that's really fascinating that you say that this is the shot that started the war.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. So you're blowing my mind right now. You're blowing my wig back, Thomas.
And it depends on which version of the movie you've seen. You might have actually seen the more edited version where they take that. It's like a fraction of a second, but it makes all the difference in the world, right?
Whoa, dude! Like almost like a Mandela effect within a movie. A Mandela.
Well, not a
effect
Mandela, like a fucking conspiracy theory,
Well,
bro. Like
yeah,
they're trying
exactly.
to whitewash the fact that the good guys are really the bad guys. You know,
Damn,
the snake really is the god.
It's the inversion.
Yeah.
It's the inversion.
Man, I've been thinking about that scene, like really getting into the details, like to the extent that he's like scratching the wall behind him. He's like kind of chipping the paint before he blasts the guy. In that exact location is the location where that guy's blast goes to.
Almost like some sort of sympathetic magic type of thing, right?
Like he programmed him to shoot to miss on that exact spot.
Well, so speaking of programming, because I wanna touch on this because it's one of the most iconic scenes. Before they get to the bar with Hans, these aren't the droids you're looking for scene. I mean, that's one of the most iconic scenes ever, where again they're using the occult, a sympathetic, magical type of way to influence the homunculus, which are the stormtroopers, to ignore them and let them pass. And I think this is really like the first time that Luke, I don't even know if Luke catches onto that, right? I don't even know if he understands what's happening, where he's like literally he's manipulating these people's realities and making them think a certain type of way. I don't even know if he catches on to that because he's so fucking oblivious to it.
Right. You know, all of that very strongly to me bespeaks of the sovereignty movement. And the idea that if you, have a really firm grasp for your constitutional amendments, 1 through 5 is all you should ever need. As long as you haven't caused any damage to any property, you can pretty much move along. These are not the droids you're looking for through any interaction with the police.
And it says, these aren't the droids you're looking for. And then he goes, the Force can have a strong influence on the weak-minded.
Right. And that's another aspect. So the clones are made for taking. They take orders, they take property, they take lives. All they do is take. It's not part of their mentality to do negotiations. And so when Obi-Wan tries to entice them to maybe buy the droids, he's like, they're for sale if you're interested. He's actually making an offer. In the clones, they cannot deal in Lex Mercatoria. They cannot do that. The market, the merchants' art, and so they just say no. And then he like waves his fingers as he's doing it with a real calm tone. But yeah, it's pretty profound. The idea of having the voice that compels, the art of compulsion.
Yeah, and then we have here the next step. So there's an evolution, and there's a distinction between Hans and Luke, where according to this author, he says that, right, we know there's an inexperienced Luke and the very cocky and alpha Han Solo, right? Because he's the experienced one, but then it kind of changes throughout the movie because again they go through an alchemical change, and where he goes through an alchemical change is in the next part of the hero's journey as the belly of the whale, and this embodies the hero's separation from the familiar while undergoing a symbolic metamorphosis. And the idea that the passage of the magical threshold is a transit into a sphere of rebirth is symbolized in the worldwide womb image of the belly of the whale. The hero, instead of conquering or consolidating the power of the threshold, is swallowed into the unknown and would appear to have died. So they talk about that being the compactor scene where they're about to die. They're having a near-death experience. And you see that when C-3PO is like, oh, they're dying. I couldn't stop it because R2-D2 wasn't quick enough. But it was because they were celebrating that they had stopped it on time. right? So here C-3PO is thinking that they're dying and they're being crushed alive, when actually they're celebrating that they got it stopped. So this compactor scene is the belly of the beast, and I always channel my inner Gabe when I'm making these graphics. I'm about to pull up a graphic that I created myself. I want you to be proud of me, Gabe. But we have here the compactor is, we know it's in the Death Star. And of course, in a very synchronistic way, I always find things, whatever, I'm looking through it. And we have here this plate, right? We have, right, the Death Star. Well, what do we have here? The star.
And let me just throw out here too, in case you guys didn't know this one, but Luke Skywalker's original name was supposed to be Luke Starkiller.
Oh, shit.
And the reason that George Lucas changed it,
George Ophucus,
they actually had to go back and reshoot a couple scenes when the name was originally set as Luke Starkiller. But the reason they changed Starkiller to Skywalker, according to George Lucas himself, was because the Sharon Tate murder, the Charles Manson, had just happened, and he didn't want people to relate Starkiller to Charles Manson or to the Manson crew.
Yikes. Well,
wow.
I found this by mistake, and it says impregnation, right? And I found this interesting. Who do you think is who do you think was the collector of this plate, of this alchemical plate? Just take a wild guess. Just a wild.
John D.
No, Manly P. Hall.
Manly P. Hall. This is miles per hour.
Yeah, Manly P. Hall. This was his alchemical plate from a collection that he had, and he has various. This is the book with the alchemical plates in it, and it's in here somewhere. So, anyways, this is part of his collection. His very extensive collection. He had various amounts of alchemical text, and this is in here somewhere. Anyways, I went ahead and I said, that kind of looks like the Death Star, right? And I overlaid it here. And impregnation, right? We have the X-Wings that's what ultimately takes it out. And it's very phallus-like. So again, this weird either womb or something, but the idea that the belly of the whale and the alchemical change of them, his rebirth happens within the Death Star, right? The alchemical vessel, right? It changes him in that scene. And so I relayed, I was like, well, that kind of sounds like a flask of some sorts, right? So here it happens. Right. You have the waters. The waters were in the compactor too. That beast that came up from the water and grabbed one of them, right? We have that tentacle there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man. And even, in the standard or the classic Pinocchio, the scene where he's being taken in by the whale, they really draw out the dramatics of the tractor beam of the whale, trying to pull him in and then almost eating him, and he gets away, and then it opens up and he goes all the way in, then he gets out again. So yeah, the tractor beam is totally a component. You're right.
And also on this whale symbolism, you've got Jonah and the whale. Yeah, and Jonah is really a form of John or Juan, which is the same as Han. So even the name matches up identically.
Excellent.
And also to add on to the symbolism, right? Because we're talking about how Luke is an archetype of the sun, and we have Leia, the archetype of the moon. Because we haven't really talked about Leia, she's dressed in white. Well, you have here this alchemical Mercurius, and you have the sun and the moon in this Death Star here. They have the star as well. So, and this is all Manly P. Hall. There's a preparation, preparatio. So I don't know what language that is, probably Latin. But you have here this transmutation. He turns into the star. The sun turned into the star. And you have the moon with it looks like a little moon in there. So it's got the little homunculus in there as well. So
one more kind of interesting component to the shape of this flask on the whole, like stepping back, the shape of the flask is that of the pomegranate, which is the forbidden fruit. In Greek mythology, it's forbidden fruit in the underworld. And then in the Torah, in the Hebrew celebrations, it's like the sacred fruit of knowledge. Uh, so it's kind of funny how the Hebrews and the Greeks don't get along. So whenever they share a symbol, you can kind of see it as like the symbol. They're arguing over the symbol. Like one group would make it evil, the other group would make it sacred.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just would point that out. It's got that sacred pomegranate, which is also the hand grenade, the palma granada. The word pomegranate means hand grenade.
Nice. Yeah, we have here. This is the original one here from the actual alchemical text, and we have some very interesting connections here. You have a coitus, so it's like this this lion eating the moon, and then I kind of said here, this is this is Luke, this is Leia, and then this is R2D2 and C3PO, the two. So just again, because I think it all goes back to alchemy. I think that's what these movies are. They're just a bunch of different, and the way that you put it at the beginning, Gabe, where you said that they're like embodiment of voodoo dolls, which they literally have them on set, right? These are props that are going to live on for forever. These are things that are going to be in existence forever, and by it's a talisman. If you really look at it, it's a talisman of some sorts where they're being used for the masses.
Totally. So, guys, I want to definitely want to bring this one since we brought the trash compactor scene in, because it is key. I sent you quite a few little images there with the tower card and the Chewbacca. So the tower card is tower number 16, or is card number 16 is always going to be the tower card. And this is a fascinating truth because the original Phoenician alphabet was 16 letters long. So the first Tower of Babel has a 16 correspondence. There's a lot of things going on with the 16. But what blows my fucking mind, guys, blows my fucking mind.
This is Gabe fashion right here, bro. This is
totally. This
is sacred bull worship.
You got it, man. So 16 is a J6. J is the 10th letter. It reduces to a 1. So January 6th was a tower event. And what blows my mind is like, even with the walls closing in, they were dealing with the barricades, the moving and removing of barricades and being funneled into like a mousetrap of an inevitable outcome. The whole thing was just like Mousetrap, the board game. But what freaks me out is the consistency of the symbols here. Not only is there the Q shaman, who is much like the Wookiee, the character who is Chewbacca. It's the significance is so uniform. It kind of blows my mind. So the Chewbacca is the symbol of Sagittarius. Where there is the centaur, Chewbacca. He's an archer. He has the crossbow, which is the centaur is a archer. Also, the constellation centaur carries a spear. The Q shaman has the spear of the American flag. Chewbacca is yelling. He's screaming out during the scene with the trash compactor. And the fucking Q shaman has a bullhorn in his hands. Like the number of consistent ingredients across the board, it has my mind absolutely.
I love this. This is amazing. I love this. This is so great.
Solve the Kabbalistic puzzle to get out of the fucking demiurgic trap.
Yeah, and if you think about this, so to read real quick, the whale represents the power of the life locked in the unconscious. Metaphorically, water is the unconscious, and we have in that alchemical flask we have the waters below, right? Nice. And the creature in the water is the life or energy of the unconscious, which has overwhelmed the conscious personality and must be disemboweled, overcome, and controlled. So, and this part here, it made me think of when Pinocchio is in the whale and he's growing his nose to try and get the whale to choke up. Well, It's right here when they're trying to jam it so it doesn't close in on them. They're trying whatever they can. They're calling R2D2 like, stop the compactor, and they can't hear him. And then when they stop it, they start celebrating. But yeah, I related this to the nose of Pinocchio.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
Juan, we just established the archetypal scaffolding.
Yes.
We are literally making the archetypal scaffolding from this scene to that scene,
Yeah.
and pointing out the correspondence between the two. That's so glorious. So, so in the scene, Luke Skywalker, he says, "There's something just brushed up on my leg," and Han Solo says, "Oh no," he says, "there's something alive in here," and Han Solo says, "That's just your imagination, kid." And it's fascinating because of what you just read.
Yeah, it's the
subconscious.
It's the power. Alive. Yeah, it's the power. It's that dark self. It's the little homunculus. In a story of Jonah type, the hero is swallowed and taken into the abyss to be later resurrected, a variant of the death and resurrection theme. So he is baptized in this scene. We see the baptism of Luke when he is dragged underneath by well, you have the demiurge here, but yeah. So this demiurgic type of thing, he baptizes him and then he spits him right back out, and we have the rebirth of the new Luke, not Star Killer but Skywalker. And then we have, again, maybe it was one of the crossing of the abysses here in the tree of the Kabbalistic tree of life. We have it here where
the homunculus is born.
Yeah, exactly. and I don't want to be mean, but I don't know if you guys have noticed this too, but Hamill, the guy that plays Luke, is it me or is he kind of like deformed a little bit? Does he look kind of funny to you guys? I mean, I don't want to be mean, but
you're jumping ahead. You're jumping way ahead. I got a huge weave on that.
All right. He's kind of ugly though.
Yeah,
I'm kind of ugly too, but I'm just saying.
No, that's important. But, I think there's something really big to the programming. But will you bring back the tower card? I got one last
this one
to point out. Yeah. So Han Solo, he says like the garbage chute was a really wonderful idea, and then he shoots his laser gun, and it turns out to be a horrible idea. So there's something just fascinating about the hypocrisy that he embodies on a subtle level. He's playing out hypocrisy, but it's not.
Again, these are those spoiled Antifa kids, bro, that are just running wild. Totally. Setting garbage on fire.
Right. Well, look at the laser beams shooting out of the eyeball on the tower card. Those laser beams shoot in all directions in the room.
Oh, I just noticed the eyeball in this thing. Oh, my God.
See how much it matches up? And this is the only tower card that has 4 characters falling out of the tower, and all 4 of them look like stormtroopers. Just like stormtroopers.
Talk about these abstractions here, the whatever this is.
Yes.
The belly. This is the mouth of the beast here. Or the dragon.
That's Chewbacca screaming out, causing more and more chaos. That's even the microphone, like, when he's screaming to C-3PO as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it blows my mind how consistently, it's not just any tower card. It is this tower card, but in particular. And then can you bring up that other one I said to you, Juan, the one with Princess Leia, where she's the one who blasts a hole in the hallway. They're in a shootout in a hallway. She shoots a hole in the thing, and she's the first one to dive through. She's going to be the G.I. Jane, and she's going to take the initiative. She's going to jump through the hole and lead them to the trash compactor, which is, oh, what a wonderful smell you've discovered. 16 is the periodic number for sulfur. Well, sure enough, not only is Chewbacca the Q shaman from the J6 event, which is the 1/6 event, guys, Princess Leia is this girl who got shot at the January 6 event.
Did she die?
They say she did. She got shot in the throat. She's the first one to jump through a window. She literally is taking the initiative, jumping through this window, which is exactly what Princess Leia did right before Han Solo says the line, either I'm going to kill her or I'm beginning to like her.
And we know what they picked.
And now get ready. This is a trip, fellas. This is a real trip. Because Princess Leia, the actress, Carrie Fisher, she actually, she had many books that she wrote. One of the books, I think, is called like The Secret Child. But in one of her books, she actually reveals certain practices that have to do with the placenta methamphetamines that they do in Hollywood. and she confirms what is called the shine. And she says that when these people get this particular whatever meth, we just call it placenta meth, that they get this shine, this charisma that is very unique. But once you know what it is, you see it and you can identify it from across the room. And so they this certain kind of methamphetamine gives them what she calls the shine. And this is really mind-boggling because this goes to The Shining in the film The Shining, where Kubrick gives a huge reveal of the fact that Danny, the main character of The Shining, he was born with his higher calling. He actually had his placenta was on his head, and he was born into an emergent situation with his placenta when he was young, and that gives him his psychic abilities. So the shine is revealed through Carrie Fisher, okay?
Interesting.
And Carrie Fisher, she goes through a death ritual in the Star Wars film when she gets blown out of the spaceship. She gets sucked out into zero gravity, and she gets covered with a shine. She gets crystallized. She gets turned into methamphetamines herself. She becomes a big crystal goddess figure, and she freezes in outer space. But then somehow she miraculously comes back and has a rebirthing ritual.
In which movie is that? That's in this one? I completely missed that.
That's in one of the. That was in her last film that she ever did, which I think is the Jedi's Rising.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you're jumping ahead, bro. Don't do that.
I am jumping ahead, but I just got to point this out. She her death scene where she goes through this death and then she somehow reverses her own death. Mm-hmm. She resurrects herself. That happened the same year. I believe that was maybe not the same year. I think it's 2017 is the year that they made that in the film. And she comes back to life. Well, she comes back to life through a doorway, which is actually, this is really hard to explain because in the film, her death scene, it is, what do they call that? When there's something idiosyncratic about the film that is impossible, that can't actually happen, but we have to take it on face value and just go with the movie. But so she's blown out in zero gravity space. And then 1 second later, they have her in the hallway and they're resuscitating her. Well, the fact of the matter is, if somebody's out in zero gravity, you can't just reach out and grab them and pull them in the hallway. So we're asked to give grace to the film directors in the film where she dies and just kind of believe that she's not really dead, just to go along with the film. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's like you have to accept the pretty much the theater for what it is. It's like, that's bullshit. It's like, I say it all the time. Well, it's so fake. Well, we know, but we're still here for it because, again, they're taking our consciousness and they want us to suspend that disbelief for that initiation. It's the killing off of the ego.
And I think that they did a really big suspension of our disbelief. They made a major ask on the audience, specifically with Carrie Fisher's death scene or her non-death scene. Well, they're like,
we can take
I thought she was dead. Now she's alive. How did they get her back in the spaceship?
Bro, we can take it a step further. They literally CGI'd her for the rest of the one of the movies because she was literally dead.
So then you're even asking, is this the real actress or is this the CGI?
Exactly, dude. It's like the whole Paul Walker thing. They was CGI his face on. He was in it. I mean, he was in this microcosm of the macro. Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing? The stitch work of reality, fiction, CGI. The actress is alive. Is she dead? Did this lady at the January 6th riot? Did she really get shot in the neck? We even see the guy, the gun. He's like shooting from around the corner. That's the style of shooting in the shootout scene. They're literally hiding around the corner, shooting from in the hallway.
That's typical stormtrooper, just a lucky shot. Oh my god!
It's so identical. It has so many ingredients. It blows me away.
Golly! So we have the next step in the monomyth is the hero's rite of initiation or the road of trials, which are tasks and ordeals the hero must overcome. And, we have Hercules with the 12 trials, the 12 houses of the zodiac, and the sun. They put here the sun negotiates annually. The original to part of the land. Meanwhile, there's only a multitude of people. So, they have little battles here and there. And this portion of the monolith surfaces in Star Wars A New Hope when the hero rescues Princess Leia but cost Obi-Wan Kenobi his life. So he was the scapegoat. He was the sacrifice when he is cut down by Darth Vader. So we're talking shortly after the compactor scene that, right before the compactor scene is like, hey, I'm Luke Skywalker and I'm here to rescue you. That's also another iconic line. Like that, I had toys that literally said, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue. Like that line, dude, is like, there's something about it. So after Kenobi's death, Luke hears Obi-Wan's phantom voice, who is also his hypothesized supernatural mentor. So we're getting into the realm of ascended master type of thing, the immortal alchemist, right? He was the hermit, and he could have been the alchemist in the cave because he was the crazy old wizard. Maybe he was doing alchemy in there, who knows? But he becomes the supernatural mentor, right? This apparition, and he hears his voice, right? And Obi-Wan, guide me. So Obi-Wan orders Skywalker to run and escape the clutches of the Death Star. Kenobi's death puts Luke Skywalker on the perilous path that will lead to illumination. For Skywalker, he can no longer turn back. He must defeat the Empire and will come back to realize that he must also have atonement with his father in the process. And then this guy puts on here, and I don't know how much this is, but I'll get your guys' opinion on it. The Galactic Empire signifies the Third Reich. Under Hitler's rule, Germany was transformed into a totalitarian state where nearly all aspects of life were controlled by the state. Emperor Palpatine, also known under the Sith name of Dark Sidious, symbolizes Adolf Hitler. Darth Vader, who is also the Emperor's apprentice and dark sorcerer, personifies both Heinrich Himmler and Rudolf Hess, who were Hitler's henchmen and disciples of the occult and dark arts. And this is Robert Sullivan's words, not mine. So the next step, meeting with the goddess and the woman as the temptress, are the next phases of the monomyth. And this is represented by Princess Leia and her interactions and relationships with Luke, Han, the droids, and other rebel freedom fighters such as Lando Calrissian. And here, the ultimate adventure, when all the barriers and orgs have been overcome, is commonly represented as a mystical marriage of the triumphant hero soul with the queen goddess of the world. This is the crisis of the nadir and zenith, or at the uttermost edge of the earth, at the central point of the cosmos, in the tabernacle of the temple, or within the darkness of the deepest chambers of the heart. So we have, I guess, this fight for love in a kind of way, because I kind of felt when I first was watched as a kid that there was like this, they were competing for her love in some type of way, like, right, the damsel in distress, and there was like this beta male, alpha male type of thing going on. And you can see it even in the other movies when she kisses Luke, her brother, on the lips, and then to try and make Hans jealous. So it's like kind of weird. I don't know. It just even as a kid, I remember thinking about it.
Yeah, one thing that is twisted. That it's like they snuck in some incest under the radar. And it took some people years to think back and be like, "Wait a second, I never thought of that." That they twisted that on us. But that is actually highly correspondent to the Zodiac, and the fact that the twins in the Zodiac, the twins are Gemini. But when you look at it with when you put the tarot onto the Zodiac, the twins become the lover's card, and you're like, "What? Something's fucked up about that. There's something wrong here." Oh. And it is twisted.
Gemini is 69, right? The 69 card. Or is that
no,
Pisces?
But the next one over, they become 69 when it crosses over to Cancer, Gemini.
Ooh.
But the only thing I can see vindicating it is it's a pharaonic. It's a pharaonic practice to keep it in the family, so to say. And in fact, Old Testament, it's like if if the husband dies, then the wife just goes to the brother.
Oh,
So
Florida
the brother,
rules.
yeah. So the brother
Alabama.
Yeah, totally. So it has that kind of baked into it also. It's like culturally there are exceptions to the incest thing, but it is kind of makes my skin crawl.
If anyone's going to fuck my sister, it's going to be me. So the meeting of the goddess of Star Wars episode 4, Ivy and Via, episodes 4 through 6 is Princess Leia herself. She is the leader of the rebellion against the Galactic Empire and the twin sister of Luke Skywalker. Since Luke symbolizes the sun, it is only natural that Leia embodies the moon, or Artemis Diana, who's Heliopollo's lunar sister. There prevails an almost universal belief that the physiological life of a woman is linked to the moon. The term menstruation signifies monthly because it occurs every lunar month. Leia, like Diana, personifies the positive attributes of the moon, as well as the independence, self-esteem, and fierce aggressiveness. So I heard that this movie wouldn't have been as good if Princess Leia wasn't such a badass that she was. I think it would have been kind of bad, right? If she was like a pushover or something. And
one thing that's trippy is she was 19 when they shot the film, which means she would have been 18 when they were casting her. And those are the numbers of the moon card is 18, sun card is 19.
Nice.
So they got that baked in there. I sent you a couple images that have my Princess Leia correspondences, which are really pretty compelling. The fact that she is, like you were saying, the Diana, the archery, the Artemis. I have her as the High Priestess card, which we talked about. Leia, Princess Leia, Princess. She has to play all of the feminine roles. Like as we go through the zodiac and as we go through different dynamics of the heavens, she ends up fulfilling all of the feminine aspects in different situations. But so this is, in one quick glance, this is a roll through the tarot cards as they roll out in their sequence, in their numerical sequence, with correspondence to their station on the Enneagram, 1 through 9. And so this was a really gratifying project to put this all together, because I did it wrong the first time. I was doing guesswork, like going with what my gut response is. And it turns out it is as simple as math. Their number of the card actually corresponds with the number of its station for the personality type. So it is like, it's not me guessing. It's the cards determining their station with the personalities. So Princess Leia, she's the achiever. She's number 3. And like you mentioned earlier, she tried to deceive him with the plans to the rebel base. You know, so she has that deceitful shadow attribute. But what really gets me is that the High Priestess card has the Torah in her lap, and she's giving R2 the plans to the Death Star. She's and also we talked about the golem. And one of the ingredients to the golem is you put the name or the instructions of what you want the golem to do on a little piece of paper, and you insert it into the mouth of the golem. So she's also doing a golem ritual by putting the message into R2.
Absolutely. And I want to add here, Leia wears a lunar white robe emblemizing, emblematizing, I cannot read, the silver light of the moon's surface. So since the hero knight was often tempted by lust on a spiritual journey, so she's tempting Han. Han temporarily embraces materialism or spiritualism and friendship when he, takes the money over his friends. And finally, the monomythic element of apotheosis, when someone dies a physical death or dies to the self to live in spirit. He or she moves beyond the pairs of opposites to a state of divine knowledge, love, compassion, and bliss. And then in their epic lightsaber duel, Obi-Wan allows Darth Vader to strike him down, thus passing on to become part of the everlasting force. Kenobi's sacrifice allows the rebels to escape the clutches of the Empire, fleeing into the Millennium Falcon. Obi-Wan is now immortal. He is now a spiritual force and bona fide adept of the Gnostic pleroma. Luke, Han, Leia, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca form what is called a sacred band. So it's people who have differences but always come together for the greater cause. And then what I found really interesting is a band of brothers goes back to the Pythagorean mystery school, and more specifically to the followers of Pythagoras. Pythagoras, quote, gathered around him a small group of sincere disciples who he instructed in the secret wisdom which had been revealed to him, and also in the fundamentals of occult mechanics, music, and astronomy, which he considered to be triangular foundation of all the arts and sciences. So he goes on to say that they're almost like a secret society type of thing, which, I mean, I guess, I mean, they're part of a group, the rebels. I mean, it could be seen as a part of a group. And then after this, they go on to destroy the Death Star. And I had some observations here. The Death Star is very, you and I did this before, Gabe, where we talked about, was it H.G. Wells and the water tower. And I know this came up in conversation the other night. Yeah. But I put that the Death Star is very Wellian, to make us it looks like a moon. So were they conditioning us to maybe think of the moon because we know that they crashed Apollo, right? Another Luke reference, into the moon, and it rang like a bell. So were they conditioning us to think that the moon was some sort of spaceship, right? A hollow moon?
Absolutely. Like we started off with Luke staring at the two suns, and like that's part of just realizing that there's still mystery to the realm, is thinking like, how is the moon so perfectly correspondent to the size of the sun? Like it just boggles the mind how that's a part of the reality here. But then also craters of the moon, and meditating on the dynamics and the measurements of craters is enough to bring next level realization. The moon is not made out of what they tell us that it is.
So it brings us to the scene, right? The ending towards the end where they are shooting the exhaust port. And hear me out on this, because if you listen to that scene, the scene where they destroy the Death Star, listening to it, if you were to turn off the visuals and just listen to it, to me, it sounded very sexual. Like, oh, you almost got it. Like, again, I have to play the words, but to me, it sounded kind of sexual. Again, because the X-Wing is very phallic-y. We have the this graphic of, again, I mean, it could be some sort of portal or womb or alchemical vessel, how I mentioned at the beginning, and then the connection to the entrance to the House of Mysteries, where, this could be Luke, trying to find himself. We have the sun here. And then when I channel my inner Gabe and I overlay the two together, well, essentially that's what it is. These movies are an alchemical process where they're trying to initiate us into the House of the Mysteries, and they put it in plain sight. So they end up destroying it. But if you just go back and listen to that scene without the visuals, and just listen, and to me, it came off very sexual and like a very sexual experience. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Again, I told you I was going to say some outlandish stuff, so here I am saying it.
I've got another. I don't know if you've got time to overlay it, but if you can click on the image that I posted in chat here, I can't not see this exact same image when I look at this little screenshot.
What the heck? This?
Yeah, the head and the face of that owl, and that sort of like matrix. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. So what is this? What is all this about?
So that's the owl of the Bohemian Club. That's what BC stands for, also known as Bohemian Grove.
So which is a club on the West Coast in California that tends to attract mostly actors and writers and artists, the same type of people that would be in Industrial Light and Magic. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
So the shape of the Y on that owl, the upside down Y.
Yeah.
I think that might be a fit for the constellation of Perseus.
Really, Mithras.
which has a good reason for being correspondent with Perseus. Perseus is holding the head of Medusa as a trophy because Athena put him up to the task, and Athena's symbol is the owl.
Interesting.
So it would be very appropriate for that to be the Perseus constellation.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, the hero, the standard hero,
So yeah, I wanted to overlay that because I found that very interesting. But obviously they end up the exhaust port, which again it's almost like a butt too, right? Anal penetration. So again, out of all the places, it had to be the exhaust port. It couldn't be the intake port. It had to be the exhaust port.
That's right.
Just putting things out there, bro. Just putting things out there to see what sticks.
The magic's in the ass.
The magic's stored in the butt.
What sticks into the exhaust port?
So, you guys want to take a quick break before continuing, or because we're going on 2.5 hours now, and
I'm gonna need a break.
That was the end of A New Hope.
Yeah. I've got one more major weave on Obi-Wan and his character, and then we could almost call it if we wanted to, or go longer. I'm down for longer
So I have exerted this show here in an hour. That's why I said I'm good to go. But
okay.
But I mean, we could also, to be honest, I was thinking about putting these out like by themselves as like a bonus episode, so we don't have to wait so long. But we could do the next one. I mean, I like the way that we're doing. We're really going in depth and really breaking it down. I like the way it's going. So I'd rather come back and revisit it if you guys want to do it again. I mean, next week
or something. For sure.
I'd love to, man, because I can get a lot more ammo together.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. So I'll bring this up, and then that's what I'd have as far as that goes, and then
Nice.
Here we go.
Yeah, man, this has been a really rewarding project. This has been such a trip to look into what I believe is the roots of this particular tarot deck, of the Crowley deck. So this is just a collage of images, but they all relate and correspond very powerfully and inform the scene that everybody knows so well from the cornerstone of culture that is the Star Wars scene.
Iconic. There's a disturbance in the Force.
This is the scene. It is so profound. So it turns out I've always known that Mount Krakatoa erupted exactly on the day of the volcano. It's actually a week-long holiday. Goes from like the 23rd through the 27th of August. And in that time frame, the figure 8 of the Analima is crossing over itself. The figure 8 is descending, and it's crossing over the bottleneck at the X marks the spot on the Analima. So on 8/27 in 1883, on the day of the volcano, Mount Krakatoa erupted. And it was a big deal in its time. It was a huge deal in its time. Across the world, in Oslo, Norway, this artist whose name is Edvund Munch, M-U-N-C-H, Edvund Munch. He was on a walk with some friends, and the sky turned blood red, and he felt a grand disturbance as though it was a scream crying out through nature. And he stumbled, and he had to lean up against the guardrails at the park he was at, and he had this a feeling of impending doom, as though some great suffering had just passed in the world. And what is quite remarkable is that Edvund Munch went on to also he painted the Scream, which is an incredibly iconic, very impactful art piece, The Scream, by that artist. And he also painted Friedrich Nietzsche in this similar painting, done in the same style, intentionally capturing the same colors, the same style, by the same artist, embodying Nietzsche, who is the granddaddy of nihilism. And so what is really blowing my mind here is that we have the event of Krakatoa in the death of a volcano infused with the nihilistic realization that God is dead. And the man who made that famous line that caused so much disturbance in the Force, because Friedrich Nietzsche, philosophically, he informed the Nazis. And so the book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, written by Nietzsche, was a tidal wave of questions that washed over the world, not just the German people, but it was a founding cornerstone of the Nazi movement. And so Nietzsche was a philologist, a master of language. I think of philology as lockpicking of words. And it's quite fascinating. I find it hard to believe that it's just a coincidence that the name Nietzsche and the word Nazi are so very correspondent to each other. But all that being said, the scream is a call. It's artistically, it's one end of the spectrum. It is a calling out of agony and nihilistic horror. Well, the response to a scream, if the scream is the call, the response is the hush. The keep the secret symbol is the response, the natural response to a crying of pain. And so the Aeon card here that I have in the middle, I think is a grand fusion, a response to the Nietzschean question of what are we going to do now that God is dead? You know, even when Home Alone, when Macaulay Culkin, when he does the smack on his face and he realizes I'm here all by myself, you know, that's actually homage to the Scream painting. And Friedrich Nietzsche actually says that humanity is like a child waking up and realizing there are no parents here to embrace you when you get to death, you know? So all of this is powerfully infused in this Aeon card. In the Aeon card is doing the hush, the silence symbol, which is very powerful to me because I happen to know the Aeon card is nested inside of the Hierophant card. That is Obi-Wan Kenobi's card that we brought forward earlier when he was looking at the 3D holographic image of Princess Leia. Well, that is the internal layer of this Aeon card is Princess Leia, the holographic image in the lap of the Hierophant card. So they're like babushka doll layers all in the sign of Taurus. So I thought I would just share that because it's so profound to me that Obi-Wan Kenobi, the character from the Hierophant station of Taurus, is the guy who actually reenacts the Edmund Monk experience of feeling a disturbance in the Force such that he has to lean against the guardrail and express it. And it even comes out that way. Look how he says it. I felt a great disturbances in the Force as if millions of voices suddenly cried out. That's the call. And then in terror and were suddenly silenced. And silence is the response.
Interesting. So they are, and when he was also put in a lunatic asylum because Nietzsche.
His sister was.
Oh, okay.
Nietzsche went crazy. So Nietzsche's craziness, it's set in the year that this volcano erupted. In 1883, the year that the Krakatoa erupted is the year that Nietzsche's, he had a crazy, I think a syphilis started kicking in.
Yeah, because he died in 88. So it was 8 when he died. I remember that he got to the point where he was eating his own feces, allegedly. So that
was actually alchemy.
Well, there you go. Alchemy. That was internal alchemy. Right. So this reflection of their reenacting, and do you think that this happens all throughout history, just subconsciously over and over and over again? This reenactment, this mirroring of the tarot, of this soul journey, but whose soul is it? Is it like the world soul, or what's going on here? Because it seems like it goes on and it happens subconsciously without people being aware of it. But is it back to what Joseph Campbell talked about, these archetypes, or even Carl Jung, that they're always there and they will always exist, and it's just like the Ouroboros and on the cycle. Why do you think that people reflect these, and why do these happen? I mean, is it like a cosmic deja vu, or what's really happening here at its core?
I think what happens here is they can actually infuse a sigil or a symbol or a concept or an archetype. They can infuse it with way more information than we are aware of. And then when we consume it and we take it in, we're like, oh, it's just a random prop from the film. But in fact, the prop was infused with all this ritualistic energy and intention behind the scenes that we don't that is not disclosed to us, but it does become infused with our collective conscious experience.
Is this I could have sworn I've seen a meme of this. Is there a meme of this scene, of this face?
I think they've memed this before.
Right? I feel like I've seen, I mean, you obviously memed it. Yeah. It's forever in the magical library of Slick Dissident, but I could have swore I've seen this as a meme before in somewhere on the internet. I'm not sure, but again, meme magic. So
he's knighted. He has all these titles, and he has knighthood.
The actor is
knighted, and so is the guy who plays the young version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's knighted also, and the title of their knighthood is OBE.
What?
They
out of body experience.
OBE, is their ranking of knighthood.
Isn't it Ewan McGregor or something? That's his name, I think. Thank you.
That's him. Yeah.
And the first three.
They're both knighted. Which is it's crazy when you get into the knighting, and that's like a whole parallel reality. Well, of the ranks and the echelons of that system.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that they were knighted in the movie, but it wasn't them. It was Hans, Luke, and Chewie. At the end where she gives them the medal. They're heroes at the end of A New Hope. So
totally.
Yeah, so I would say that they were knighted, but I feel that even when they're shooting these movies, because if you think about it, they're going through everything. They're going through this experience. So even the movie shooting itself, right? There's somebody who's in charge of casting in movies. I think that even that's some sort of initiatory process, because they're shooting these scenes. They're representing I love the way you put it. They're the embodiment of these voodoo dolls. So.
Right.
I think absolutely that it's like a magical ritual of some sort.
Right. Can you bring up these last couple ones, and then we maybe we can start wrapping up. But so just like you said, they start the opening of the film. They're shooting the film, right? And what is really kind of funny, kind of punny, is in the beginning of almost all the Star Wars films, it starts with the same thing, with a battle star or a big ship chasing after a little ship, and there's laser beams. They're shooting the laser beams at the little ship, or the soldiers are coming to barricade the door so that Darth Vader can't come in. And the soldiers, they literally will have 10 soldiers pointing their guns at the camera. And so one of the themes is 10 shown. They tried to build up a lot of tension by showing you soldiers pointing their guns at you, breaking the fourth wall. I've seen that as an interesting pattern that Lucas has done with Star Wars in quite a few ways and quite a few times. You got to forgive my bad editing, but this is the 10 card. This is card number 10. It's the Wheel of Fortune card, and it embodies the plans to the Death Star, all of the Death Star ships, all of the evil vessels, and those plans are encapsulated and put into the head of R2-D2 in the beginning of the film. So he's charged, he's crowned with the task.
He's a talisman.
He's supercharged talisman. He's burdened with carrying the knowledge of the Death Star. And so what is really just blows my mind in terms of consistency of symbolism is the fact that UFO if you subtract one letter from each of those letters, you end up with the acronym for TEN. And I've talked about this before because it just blows my mind that of all the things it could spell, it spells 10, because card number 10 is this Wheel of Fortune card, the iconic symbol of a UFO, the disc, the sacred disc. So it just trips me out to no end that card number 10 seems to be supercharged with the iconography of UFOs. And you can even see look at the laser beams shooting, in the background of this UFO card. It's got laser beams. It's got stars exploding, everything you could ask for. And what freaks me out a little bit, maybe a lot of it, will you go to the other one I sent you there, Juan? There's an artist, Francis Bacon, who does claim to be related to the Francis Bacon. Yes. And he's a very influential artist. You've probably seen his stuff around. But this particular installation he did seems to have powerful correspondence with the Wheel of Fortune card. Not just because of the colors, and there's so many ways. I could make a quick list of like 10 or 12 different things this has in common with one another. But this is Pope Innocent the 10th. He's got a big fat X. It's Roman numerals even. It's Innocent the 10th. And this is the 10th card in the tarot deck.
What's the name of this painting? It's fucking freaky.
Yes. It's a study after Velázquez portrait of Pope Innocent the 10th.
Oh.
1953. You can see the kind of some of the receipts down there at the bottom. But isn't that a trip that this art, which is very, like, these artists, they're impressionists, but they're like really on a nihilistic tip, and they were psychologically in a place that seems a bit alarming, that we were bringing our children to consume this art that has this very obscure but powerful correspondence with these nihilistic artists.
Sympathetic magic,
man. And it's infused with
art is alchemy. I mean, when they're mixing these colors and doing all these things, I mean, it's a form of alchemy. And
I can't not see the Wheel of Ezekiel in this as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Wheel of Ezekiel as well. Then you have that triangle here in the background too. There's 10 spokes, the 10 card, and then on the original one that I pulled up is 8. And I think that the CERN portal has 8 little, the picture you've seen of CERN and the Hadron Collider. I believe it's 8 as well, or it might be 10. Who knows? But yeah, it's very interesting because this is kind of like a portal here. If you look at this, it's like time being sucked in on itself. The sky above with the stars. So it's very interesting. Then you have these animals or chimeras again in here. You have a crocodile, snake type of thing with a monkey, armadillo looking type of thing. Very, very interesting. But yeah, I could see where you're talking, like some sort of sympathetic magic where it's like this is imbued in the art underneath, underneath is like overlaid. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. One more thing I should throw in here, because it's so interesting, it's so fascinating, it totally needs to go in the first installment of the Star Wars thing. Lady Frida Harris is the name of the artist who did the Thule Krauth deck. And what is really strange is, usually this relationship between Crowley and the artist, it should have been such that Crowley would pay her to do the art. He should have been commissioning her, but she was such a Crowley fan that she actually paid him to teach her.
Dumbass.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting, fascinating relationship. But something that seems very important is Lady Frida Harris, her genealogy, it kind of dissolves into obscurity in India and in Jamaica, which is the location where Kamala Harris's genealogy comes out of. And I do believe that they are related in one way or another. I think they're related in some of the more supporting evidence, other than just their names and their genealogy being the same. Lady Frida Harris seems to come from an extremely interesting family line. Her father was a plastic surgeon expert for MI6. And so he was actually,
Wasn't Crowley in the MI6?
I think, yes. So the spies, these British spies, these European spies, were working game 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. And we're only just now catching on to these relationships between them. So yeah, having her father be, a person who can change people's face is essentially that's Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the original Mission Impossible team. And so so Lady Frida Harris and Kamala Harris and their association to each other is becoming not only theory, but it seems important, that these cards have been infused with so much of our culture for my entire life. And we're just now looking back with all the information and making these connections. I thought I would throw that out there. Lady Frida Harris is definitely a person of interest.
What an interesting painting to have of a pope. If you really look at this, right?
He's got other versions of this too. Like he did a series of this pope.
Interesting.
Yes.
And
there's a bunch of other cool ones.
And I want to point out, because Donut's been talking about how purple lights are being used for mind control. Well, you and I, Gabe, have talked about the Hans purple of the terracotta soldiers, and we have purple here with the gold, purple here with the gold, and purple being what I believe a color that can hold the soul in a way, right? We've always shown that purple is the color of royalty. It's like this weird color, and these colors are an amalgamation of different colors usually. And we know that that they weren't able to reproduce the Hans purple, which I believe was some sort of, they're trying to store the soul into these voodoo dolls, these embodiments of, the simulacra of the men that were, I think, creating them. And who knows if they would finish the statue, they would kill the man and mix his blood into the paint. And paint these, you don't know, because they're all different. And one of the things back then, architect as magician, was when the pharaoh would die, well, guess who would die too? The assistants would die too. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? Or maybe they didn't die and they just put a little bit of their blood on there and sealed the deal, and everybody moved on. Again, very, very interesting. Never thought about it like that. But anything else, Gabe? Anything else? Thomas?
I wanted to throw quickly, because you mentioned before about the archetypes, and if it's like this, if we're just going through different cycles in the same cycle, and I 100% think we are. And I think a good example of this would be like cymatics. You ever seen one of those plates and you rig it up to like a subwoofer, and then they usually put sand on it, right? But it's no matter what the medium is, whatever you put on that plate is going to follow those exact same patterns. It's going to go through the exact same sort of motion. So as you raise the frequency and you go through them and they keep changing, just imagine that the first time you put blue sand on it, and then the next time you put like yellow sand on it, and the yellow sand's looking around like, hey, do you think we're anything like those blue guys that were doing this before? And they're like, nah, bro, those guys were blue. We're yellow. It's totally different. And I kind of feel that like that's us going through the generations, right? You look back and we're like, 2,000 years ago, they're a bunch of idiots. They're gonna, Rome's gonna fall. They didn't even see it coming. And it's like, we're not gonna be like those guys. We're yellow. We're not blue. And I kind of feel like we're just following those exact same. And that's what archetypes really kind of are. I mean, we think we're so advanced because we can identify them because of pattern recognition, and we think we're even smarter because we start putting names to them. We start breaking them down, and we can see the formula. But it's like we're still on this wheel, right? We're still on the wheel of fortune. Nobody's made their way into that center spoke where they can just look around and see the wheel of fortune spinning around you. Like you're on the outside of it, and you're being affected by it constantly. So I just see the exact same thing as an archetype.
And it makes me think of when Nikola Tesla said, if you would think of life in what vibrations and frequencies, you would understand the entire world. Well, what if existence is this big subwoofer just shaking everything up, right? Our molecules being shaken up and organizing a certain type of pattern, which we call life, right? And that's why maybe these tarot cards are just that. the emanations of what's to come, right? They're and if you fall into it, you fall into it. And if you don't, you're still existing in this universe, in this reality. Because I've heard occultists refer to it as, oh, you slip right in. Well, what if when you slip right in, it's because you're hitting that frequency and you fall right into that reality or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a very, very, that's just an analogy I came.
So this is it, man. This is wild. This is so far out. So like you were saying, Mark Hamill, it looks like they worked really hard to make him. That's Mark Hamill. I think they intentionally.
No, that's Steve Bannon.
Oh, okay. I was like, holy shit.
I think they made Mark Hamill come out of retirement just in time for you to attach to this Steve Bannon image, this false hero. And what is a trip and a half is the fact that Steve Bannon absolutely was QAnon. You know what I mean? Whatever it started off as, it ended up in the hands of these guys here. But you take the 1 and the 7 of the Q, it becomes an 8, and then you put the anon on the end, and it's a Bannon. I know I missed an N on there. It's BANNON, but that's 8anon. It's QAnon, And so it really blows my mind how much the QAnon and the Steve Bannon programming go hand in hand. Because when you zip to the next one that I sent to you, this is so trippy. Because when they brought Mark Hamill out of retirement, he was required to not take the stand. He did not mount a defense in his trial. He did not take a stand. That's literally a segment out of the description of Steve Bannon's trial, his show trial. And that is exactly what Mark Hamill did in his closing scene, his career-ending scene. This is where Mark Hamill dropped the microphone.
He was a ghost in this, though, right? When he swipes at him, his robe falls, so he's like a ghost. I mean,
it totally wasn't even him. He was just a ghost. You're absolutely.
It was a homunculus. It was a homunculus being projected.
Yes. So it blows my mind still to this day how many ways and what aspects of what we take as news actually is programming.
This is a card that was actually written and signed by Mark Hamill. That's Mark Hamill's autograph on the bottom.
Oh,
but it just goes back to what I was saying, that it's all about the spice. And he's joking here, but
golly, dude. Yeah, they're trolling us, dude. They're trolling us. What? Searching for the missing droid. Yikes. I think it's the Cinemagicians at work. Definitely George O. Fucus. I can't get over that, dude. George O. Fucus. Yikes. Okay. So I think this is exactly what I wanted. The one-on-one Slick Dissident Paranoid American twist on the alchemical deciphering of Star Wars. And we were supposed to do Empire Strikes Back, but obviously we have a lot of fun when we were together and we come up with a lot of absurd and crazy tangents, but we're here for it, and I think people enjoy those, and I think that's what makes the process that much fun. But
we're gonna crank it up to 11 for the next one anyways.
Yeah, man. Why can you bring that one last visual up? Because I just want to get this out, or else I'll forget, because it's fresh on my radar. I've really been digging into the Carl Jung in the story of Carl Jung.
Yeah.
And this really blew my mind. Every time I look, I find something new about Carl Jung. I find out, I think he was posthumously instilled as a hierophant. I think he is the hierophant of our generation, of my generation, at least. I can say that. And I don't think he knew about it. I think this is them, utilizing the estate of Carl Jung he's gone. His Red Book was released in 2009. That's the same year that the Solabusca deck was released for circulation to the public. And 29 is a very interesting year. It's the 29th seal of Solomon in the Ars Goetia is Astaroth, the seal of Astaroth, which is the Jesuit logo. But all that aside, I'm getting off track. I realized that Carl Jung's ring has this symbol of the Yaldabaoth, the serpent, the sacred serpent. And so I was doing some research on his ring in particular, and it says that it's based on this agathodemon that was depicted on old Roman coins. And so I'm researching that, and as I'm researching it, it occurs to me, holy shit, I think it's not just any agathodemon. I think this is particularly this serpent that is on the world card on the Thouth Crowley deck. This is very unique to this card. I think it's specifically this particular snake, which I think is the Hydra constellation circulating around the South Pole. But yeah, I just found that. I mean, don't you guys think that looks pretty damn similar? The two snakes there.
This is making me think of the serpent bearer sign as well.
Right.
Isn't Ophiuchus the serpent bearer?
Ophiuchus is the serpent bearer. Yep.
Yeah.
And what's kind of trippy is I'm learning the difference between my different snakes in the constellations. And to be a real nerd about it, this snake, you're right, it does have a lot of Ophiuchus because it's going between the legs, it's threading around the body, you know. It does have a lot of Ophiuchus on it. But I just see it as a different snake in particular, if I were being a real snickler about my snake names. But yeah. But isn't that a trip? Isn't that such a trip that it's this is the universe card, is card number 21. It's the final card of the trumps of the major arcana. And so it corresponds to the Fool card, because the Fool card would be like the alpha. This would be the omega, the very end. And so I thought we could end on that thread.
Yeah, because Carl Jung is an interesting character. He was obsessed with alchemy too. He was, and I have some stuff on him that we can bring up for the next one. But yeah, I would love to keep digging. I would love to do a show on just him, on just Carl Jung, and talk about his alchemical work. He wrote about it extensively, and he had a ton of alchemical books, like rare manuscripts and stuff like that. So I would love to dive into him, because yeah, this is kind of interesting. Why would you have that Yaldabaoth on your ring, your talisman, if you will, out of all the creatures you could have? So
right. And I just learned that they brought the Nagamati to him.
Yes, he had and he later donated it, I believe. But yeah, he was obsessed, bro. He was obsessed with alchemy, and he even did alchemical plates, which I would love. We should do an episode on just Carl Jung and break down his alchemical plates and all that. I think that would be interesting, because you have so much shit on Carl Jung that it's wild. Big
time, yeah. So I still my grand thesis is that Darth Vader is Anichian Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker is Anichian Skywalker. He's the Ubermensch. He's the Nazi. You know, the state is God marching across the earth. So that is the Darth Vader persona. And then I still think of the Jedis as the Jungian psychological analysts. You know, the philosophers were built the empire on philosophy. Well, now you need the psychologists to come along and soften shit up a bit and be like, look, man, y'all fucking stormtrooped across the land a little too hard.
I think that the George Ophiuchus is gonna take it for a little bit, Gabe. I think we're gonna have to work to dethrone that one. I think that's been your best one to date, since the entire time that I've known you. I've known you since February of 2022 of this year, when we recorded our first episode, and I think that one takes the cake out of all the names and wordplay you've put out there. George Ophiuchus.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it.
Well, boys, I think that was another one in the chamber of the alchemical chamber here. We have to stress that it is an alchemical breakdown because it is alchemically charged, and I think it's all part of this weird thing we call reality in life, where it emulates art or art emulates life, whichever. But something's going on. Something's going on at its deepest core, in the belly of the beast, in the whale, if you will. And yeah, you guys want to plug your stuff? We almost went about 3 hours. 2 hours and 53 minutes on just one episode, so we can literally make an entire series of this.
After you.
I mean, as always, paranoidamerican.com, comic books, games, crazy conspiracy theories, and lots more of this.
Yeah, we're here for all of it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, Slick Dissident on YouTube. Also get down with the Weaving Spiders webs, and you can catch me with Chance Garton over on the Interverse on Rockfin.
Right on, and I'll post the links in the description. I had a lot of fun with this one. I'm really excited to get into the next one, and we can really just this was like a test run, so we see where we went. We usually do this type of shit. I didn't know we were going to be able to get through both, because it's just and it's not that long. The story's not that crazy, but what's packed into that.
This was longer than the movie.
Yeah, this was longer than the movie, exactly. And I think for the next one, I think we should do maybe, because I have that. Again, I was in the store, right, and I came across this Decoding Darth Vader, and I didn't read it. I didn't get a chance to read it, but we can get into the actor. Maybe we didn't talk about the scene. Well, that's in the next movie. I Am Your Father. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's impossible.
That's impossible. You're a black man.
So we'll get into that. And yeah, I think we should break down George Ophiuchus's history. Maybe I'm sure we can find something in there that's kind of shady, if we really look. So we'll break that down and maybe get into the background of the characters a little bit, and see where that takes us. What rabbit hole? Maybe we might do another 3.5 hour episode on that. So thank you for all those that stuck around this long. You can find me on social media at the 101 Podcast, patreon.com/the 101 Podcast, rockfin.com/the 101 Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that shit. Look me up. Chosen Juan issue 2 Kickstarter. I'm gonna put that first in the description, so y'all can sign up for that. And yeah, make sure to leave a review, share with your grandma, whatever. Love you guys. See you on the other side.